Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. We got a different crew today than the typical Council of Light. So, Council of Light Part 2, I guess, maybe. But we have some hopefully fun topics for everyone involved. So, thanks, Sage, for hanging out as normal. And we also have Crimson Law back again.
I don't know why I've returned.
That's why you've returned. And then we got Squash with us again. Thanks for hanging out, Squash.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right. So I don't think you guys know the first topic because I kind of kept it in my brain, but there's been some recent kerfluffalization, I guess, between the. I'm sure you guys have heard of Dragon Age Veilguard or whatever it's called. The Veil Guardian or Veilguard?
I think it's Veilguard.
Veilguard. Okay, so there's been some comparisons for Dragon Age Veilguard to Baldur's Gate 3, as you can imagine and accept.
So fantasy game gets compared to other fantasy game that may not be a good comparison. Sounds about right.
More like the fantasy game comparison because one's called woke and the other one isn't, despite both having quote-unquote similar content.
Right.
Now, I have recently changed my opinion on the term woke because I'm getting kind of tired of it, but I also understand that it does actually have a defined meaning and it actually does, make things a little simpler to shrink a little.
It's easier to say woke than cultural Marxism.
That too. Yeah. Or ideologues or cultural Marxism or Marxist.
Well, really, like if you want to talk about the ideology behind woke, it's just cultural Marxism.
Well, yes, but I'm talking like when somebody does something like, oh, all the characters are gay or all this is that. It's when they're promoting that, it's their ideology that they're doing it, which you can call cultural Marxism, but for the most of the rest of the world, they don't understand
cultural Marxism.
Marxisms. That's corporatism, basically, in a nutshell. Yes, but basically, the comparison, because in Dragon Age Veilguard, you have pretty much all of the companions except I think 2 are pansexual, and in order for you to more or less argue that it's the same as Baldur's Gate, because Baldur's Gate has content kind of similar, like you can be gay with a character or you could be straight with another character, yada yada, depending on what you pick, where Dragon Age specifically states if you want to romance these characters you have to be pansexual, and it's just like, but why would I want to be pansexual?
But that doesn't make any sense though.
Well, because they want you to be pansexual.
If they are, then you're good regardless, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, but it's what the creators want to sort of force on the people who are playing it, right?
They're trying to normalize pansexualism, and I would assume also LGBTQ type relationships, because I have a different view on Baldur's Gate 3 than probably a lot of people because I think of it differently. I do love the game. I think it's really, really fun. I wish it was more open world and less, linear storyline. But Dragon Age doesn't even look like Dragon Age anymore. The story doesn't even sound like Dragon Age. Like it's a polar opposite. Apparently, it's a restart of the series or something. Like,
yeah, I've heard that it doesn't take any of the past games decisions that you made. If you have them all, it doesn't take them into account at all into the new game, right?
More or less, yeah. Because they were going for, I think it was originally going to be called Dragon Age Dreadwolf.
Yeah, Dreadwolf.
And it was supposed to be a continuation, I believe, of 2 was the last one. And then they scrapped that idea and went the route of...
Dreadwolf is related to the one of the characters from 3.
There's a Dragon Age 3?
Yeah, it's called Inquisition.
Oh, yeah. Inquisition. Okay. I was like, what? Or whatever the most recent game was, it was like the end of that was like setting up a character to do something in the next game, and that's where they were going to go with it, and that's not what it ended up being. So, from my perspective, I'm looking at that like you had a plot line that you had fans of the series, they're all going that direction. You completely derailed that to go a different route. But the studio shuffling that all the studios seem to be doing, all the original like really respected developers and stuff are no longer with those studios. The ones that did like Witcher 3 are no longer at CD Projekt Red. They're at different studios.
Yeah.
They created their own studios. They've done a whole bunch of different things, but they're not with those companies anymore. So you can't
Yeah.
expect those good quality games.
Just
from
about
these
every
people going.
studio that has made a game that made the games you liked and grew up with is probably different at this point. For
Yeah,
being honest, like they aren't the same people just because of all these initiatives that have been
like
used
the
to
ones
push.
the ones that worked on CD Projekt Red's The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 and even the expansion, they're pretty much not there anymore. So like if you're expecting the same thing or something similar to that, you're probably not going to get that. And it's hard to tell because I don't have any insiders, but it's hard to tell whether or not they were forced out or if they left because they didn't like the direction the studio was going in, or some DEI nonsense that I just don't like. But the comparison is that people are like, hey, everybody's mad at Dragon Age Origins for its quote unquote being woke. Why are they not that way about Baldur's Gate 3? Why are they not raging at them? And I'm thinking, well, one, your selling point for Dragon Age Veilguard is pansexual identity or the gay identity or the uglification of characters identity. Like your whole shtick isn't even about the game, it's gameplay, the storyline itself. Like it's
Like
not
the
even
shed,
about it.
the
But
Kunari look.
yeah, but Baldur's Gate 3 was all about like here's these wonderful different types of characters. You can use them in different ways. You can have a relationship with them if you want to, but it was never like, hey, have a relationship. But like the way it's set up is like this is a D&D game that's digitized. Go in and play how you want. We hope you have fun. Totally different marketing strategies. And people
Yep.
are like, well, you can't call them different. They're the same thing. No, they're very much different. Like nothing in okay. The reason I see Baldur's Gate 3 differently than probably most people is because I see it like D&D, like actual D&D. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with D&D, it lets you do pretty much anything you want to, as long as it falls within the universe rules. So if you want to have a pansexual relationship with somebody, you can. If you don't want to have a pansexual relationship with somebody, you can. Like your limits are literally what your DM sets for you. And that can be different upon different DMs. So if you don't know what you're doing, it's just literally you're role playing a character that you made up and you just do that. You could be a dude playing a chick character and the chick wants to get with another dude's dude character. And you could have a quote unquote sexcapade the whole entire session if your DM lets you do that kind of stuff. If you're a degenerate like Crimson. But if
I am a degenerate. You do not know my fucking collection of manga, my digital stuff anyway.
I don't really want to know at this point. But
Are you sure about that?
yes, I am. But in terms of like you can do anything. That's the whole gist of D&D is like you could have no sexuality whatsoever. You could have all the sexuality. You could have people playing characters that are them or characters that aren't them. I prefer characters that aren't me because I'm me all the time. Why would I want to play anything more? It's just boring. But the point is you can do whatever you want. And that's what Baldur's Gate 3 does. Baldur's Gate 3 says, here's all the different variety you can do. And obviously Sage can attest to this because he's played it. Here's all the things you can do without having to worry about, jacking up everything per se. But like if you decide,
within the rules of the game, of course.
within the rules of the game, yes. But the rules of the game aren't like they're not going to be like, oh, you can't sleep with that person. You're not pansexual identifying. Like they're not going to do that. You could just decide one day I'm going to be gay. The next day I'm not gay anymore, and then just move on to the next thing. It's literally that's what That's what D&D
Well,
does.
I mean, the relationships do sort of lock in. So,
Well, some of them, yes, but you can also start in that direction, then change your mind, then not go that way the whole way. Like there's a lot of ins and a lot of outs before you hit the lock-in motion, and even after the lock-in motion, I mean, if they die, that's over. So it's usually how it works anyway.
well,
Um,
there's resurrection magic, so not quite.
well, yeah, but you don't have to
Um,
resurrect them.
game is there? What is it? Other you can be with any character you want in Baldur's Gate, right?
Any companion character, yes.
Well, if
Yeah,
you are
companion.
nice to them, then yes.
Well,
Yeah,
you
but
have to suck up to them and like build a relationship with them, yes, but
like I remember at the beginning of the game, people were like shacking up with characters really quick, which is what people were making fun of, and
sure.
some did have a gripe with that. Did they fix that at all,
Well,
I
the
or
don't
it
thing is,
take more time?
but that's the thing though, is that though people going in and actively shacking up with people is their choice to do so. You don't have to do that. You can
No, yeah,
choose, I'm not really ready for a relationship right now, and then just move on. Like you don't have to do it. It's literally if you want to.
yeah, but
There's
I'm saying like if the character is like open, if the companion you're with is open to shacking up with you too quickly, is what I'm saying. If they're like,
Yeah,
no, I'm not ready
they
for
are
that.
but but
very quick to do that. Yes.
but also keep in
Okay.
mind there's some like Asterian's very sexual. Like he's
Oh yeah, well if
very overtly
Yeah, but so is Shadowheart
well,
and Lae'zel.
I mean, Shadowheart hasn't really shown me any sexual sides at all in my run through of it, but that's also because she's kind of a prude in terms of just her temperament. But in terms of like, if he was like, yeah, let's slide into bed together, and I'm like, I'd rather not. Like, it's not like everybody in a fantasy series or in like whatever is going to be like one man, one woman get married after dating each other for 2 years or something and then have kids. That's not how the average person thinks in the modern world.
yeah.
I'm not going to go into whether or not they should, but that's a different story. But in terms of the actual like choices and decisions you can make, if somebody's like, let's get together for the night, and you get together for the night, well, technically you started a relationship. So now you can choose to either continue that relationship or you can choose to avoid that relationship, whatever you wanted to do. But if they're asking to be in a relationship, it's because they want some. Now, if you say yes, that means you want some too. So it's your fault if you chose to go that route. But it's not a game problem. It's your choice problem. So it's just that's the game. Is the game is open and lets you play the game straight, lets you play the game gay. That it's entirely up to you. You can be a man with a vagina, you can be a woman with a dick. Like you can do whatever you want because they give you the tools to do whatever you want. They're not controlling your playing. Dragon Age, on the
Alright.
other hand, is going out of their way to say if you're going the straight path, you have access to two characters that are companions. You
What did it
have
say?
you have to be
There,
pansexual in order to go to the other ones.
yeah, which like it shows their
And they've got
bias
they've
and
got non-binary, they've got I'm probably sure even two-spirit or three-spirit or whatever the freaking combinations they've got now. They've got probably everything comboed to whatever the
Which
modern
game is
era is.
this?
The
Dragon
fuck
Age
does
Veilguard.
two spirit and three spirit even mean?
It's non-binary.
It's
it's supposed to be.
fantasy
I don't
stuff.
know.
No, it's like Native American crap.
Yeah, fantasy because they don't actually do that.
They don't? 'Cause I keep seeing images of them doing it, so clearly.
Wait, you're telling
Well,
me
you
that
know,
people will
it's not
use
like they
whatever they
lie.
want for their fucking ideological bullshit? Cool.
Lie?
What? That's crazy.
Wow.
That's wild, man. It's
Who'd have thought?
wild. But yeah,
That's whack. You know?
so there's this whole the whole thing is just literally trying to compare these two. They're not the same. When I played Dragon Age, the original one back in college, because I'm old. Oh, we lost Crimson. Um,
Oh,
Damn.
Crimson, alas, I knew him
Played
once.
the original like a few months back.
he was weak anyways.
He was weak. But no, in the
Didn't actually
original,
finish it because there was not quite a stable release.
well,
Oh, really?
but when I played it, it's a very locked in world.
Mhm.
and there wasn't a whole lot you could do. Like you had to kind of just follow the story as you went.
Well, it might have been stable back in the day, but on modern software, it doesn't quite run.
Well, that depends. Are you on GOG or are you on EA or what?
Steam,
So EA,
possibly. I don't know.
because I'm pretty. Isn't EA the one who does Dragon Age?
Could be.
'Cause
I
it-
just know I had to.
Does
jump
it
through
open?
a
Does it
lot of
open
hoops.
up Origin every time you try to play?
I don't think so.
Well, maybe. On second thought, I don't know if the EU has those third parties pop up or not.
A few.
Okay, I don't know how that works over there. But if you go to like GOG, which is where I have a bunch of them, they basically fix them up to work on modern machines.
Interesting.
So what they do, that's why it's called good old games. They take old games like, I don't know, Praetorians or Prince of Chin or something like that, and they'll basically take these things that
Optimize it.
barely they basically take things that barely even work on Windows 7, if that. Like the last thing they worked on was XP or something, and then they'll update it from that point.
they'll
That
optimize it
sounds
up to work.
good. The Steam version is not
I don't know
particularly
why
great.
Crimson's here, but Crimson is not here. Oop, nope, wrong one. That explains it. That explains it. Why don't you have a real tech person come to your house and make sure things are running properly?
I don't like Indians.
I said a real tech person.
Okay, fair enough.
Those are AI.
India doesn't exist. It's all just AI generated.
Thank you for calling. I am here to help you. But no, in terms of like playing it, whether it be like on XP or whatever, GOG has basically the updates to make it work. So anything
Okay.
single player, I've been trying to get on GOG because one, they're much cheaper than Steam in a lot of instances, but they don't have everything that Steam has. But if you can get it single player on GOG, because GOG is DRM free, so you own everything that you buy.
That's cool.
Steam, all Steam has to do is come out and say, every game you have, you own. Literally all they have to do. If they could do that, game changer. They won't do it that I know of. I hope Gabe does eventually, but why he hasn't done that yet, I don't know. Doesn't make sense not to. It's not like people already buy the game. It's not getting extra money from them. But whatever. I mean, he's investing an awful lot of time into Steam Workshop, Steam community, the forums, all that different type of stuff for people who rent stuff. Like, what even is this? But anyway, so yeah, the comparison between Dragon Age Veilguard and Baldur's Gate 3, I don't think those are even comparable. Because while they both have similar content, one's not pushing it down your throat. It's completely optional every choice and decision you make. Where Dragon Age is like, you don't have a choice, really. And not only that, Baldur's Gate 3 is like, check out this great grand adventure. Their whole marketing plot and everything was just, check all this cool stuff out. Check all these cool characters you can meet. Go to all these really cool places. There's these big places. There's these little places. All the different type of stuff. Go have fun, play with your friends, have a blast, and come back, right? Dragon Age is like, well, we got sexual identity politics. We've got pansexuals. We got gay people. We'll probably put some trans people in here. You can do this, you can
Well,
do that.
yeah, they
And it's
will.
like, but what about your gameplay? And from what I understand, people who have actually played it, is like, you get bored of the repetition after like 10 minutes of playing. 10 minutes. It takes longer for me to install the game than it would take to freaking not get bored of it. Like, that's just ridiculous. So I every time somebody's like, oh well, these are the same thing, they're not. They're not even in the same league. And I like Larian Studios. I don't necessarily agree with everything that they should do, but I do appreciate the fact that they at least give me the option to make the decision rather than somebody else. They're not making my decisions for me. They're not holding my hand. So I appreciate that. So I think Dragon Age is going to probably bomb, mostly because the gameplay is probably going to suck. Not necessarily
Well,
because of the identity stuff.
I already saw that they're padding their numbers. There's a guy I watched who covers this stuff, and I've actually streamed with him a little bit. He was talking about basically how like the company's already trying to pad numbers for like sales and stuff by giving away free copies of
I mean,
Veilguard.
the Nvidia thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh my
Nvidia is going to
goodness.
get screwed so hard. I think it's also dropping on Game Pass day one,
ooh,
which is going to kill its sales. Because again,
Yeah.
if I have Game Pass, I'm already paying for Game Pass. But I'm playing the game, realizing, man, this is terrible, and then shutting it off. It's gonna be. I mean, I don't think it's gonna have 6 players like Zal's gonna have, like Zal has currently, but I do think it's going to drop a lot harder than people give it credit for.
it'll probably be like the way the Suicide Squad debuted. It had a couple thousand players like the first day, and then after that, it just fell into the abyss.
Probably.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how many of the characters are beloved characters from prior games, because if it's like a reboot, I don't know if they're going to even have the same characters. I don't know the story as of it is so far, because I never played Inquisition. I think I did a little bit of 2 before I stopped, and I just got wrapped up in all this other stuff, so I never got to play it again. I considered going back through and playing them, but I've got so many games I need to go through and play. So, yeah. So I don't know specifically of that, but I am expecting it to not do as well as they need to, and I'm suspecting it's going to kill the studio. Because that's what happens right now. Studios are dying left and right.
I wouldn't be
I mean-
surprised if it did end up going that way.
When was their last win? Like, where a game that did good.
I
When was
don't
the
even
last
know what
one?
the studio does.
BioWare, right?
Think so?
Yeah.
BioWare has the Star Wars The
Oh,
Old
no.
Republic MMO. At least they did. I don't know if they still have it or somebody else bought it from them. But
Yeah, I thought
I'm pretty sure it's BioWare, but even if it wasn't
Yeah.
BioWare, regardless of the studio, it's going to hurt them so much, they're going to have to lay off at least half of it. But if I remember correctly, they said that there was a lot of contractors for this BioWare one, and they were already going to be letting them off anyway. So,
so it's going to be a huge budget then.
it's a moderately
have-
good sized budget.
Yeah, because I mean,
I don't know where it
what seems
went
like
because it looks like an
I
old
think it's-
game.
if they have thousands of people on it, like work like the last few games, it's probably going to be big budget. That's what it seems like. It's just mostly they just have so many people that they're paying that's why the budget is getting so big. All that
Well,
$200 million doesn't go
Most
into the game.
larger or legacy legendary status type ones like CD Projekt Red, BioWare, Bungie, freaking what are they called? Bethesda, etc. They always have like these really, really big budgets and these really, really big staffed stuff. But I don't see them being able to maintain that. Like Zal flopped so hard because it only got, I think it was 269 or 289 peak players. And they fired
like,
their
not
entire
even
staff.
past 500.
They didn't even get past
That was what
300.
about 12 people? I think that was 12 people that they had.
I don't
their
know, but
staff.
whatever it was, they're toast. So,
Yeah,
in that regard, how do you account for those kind of things? Because it's literally just a kerfluffle of epic proportions, and multiple games are having this problem.
yeah.
So
I don't know. Maybe focus on actually making good games. That might help.
I don't know, man. That's a bit extreme. That's
Yeah,
pretty,
man.
that's pretty right wing alt right stuff you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
there.
man.
sorry.
That's an
I should go to
impossible
I should go back to the sensitivity training and relearn everything from scratch.
I mean, I know
Yeah.
a sensitivity officer in that group, so they can take you to the concentration camp and re-educate you if you like.
Concentration camp, is that like where I learned to read?
Yes.
It's where you learn to concentrate.
Okay.
Concentrate on your privilege,
Maybe help you with your thinking so you don't get like stumped every Time zone, yes.
I don't think no good.
It's your Tardo mode.
Aw.
But yes. But yeah. Anybody else have any final comments before we close this part and move to the next one?
Play games from like a decade ago and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Or
Yeah.
if you're going to
Or
make if you're gonna
go for
make
the
a
good
new
new ones.
game, if you make a good game or a new game, make it like the old games in turn not in terms like the graphical qualities. I mean, you can if you want to go retro or whatever, but like make them the way they made them. Make it just one thing, all in the box, pun intended. And if you want to really impress people, do a physical version of it as well. Like impress people. Baldur's Gate 3 did their physical right here. I got it. I wanted physical. I can play it off a disc if anything ever happens to the system. Why not? But they tell me don't own the game, but they don't know I have this. So, all right. I guess we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so for next topic, I know it's not going to be today by the time the video comes out, but Side Scrollers had a fun conversation, right? Squash.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I don't know, Crimson.
know.
Were you paying attention to it? I think you said
It's
you
pretty
missed
civil.
it. But
Usually
Civil?
I will watch side scrollers on my lunch break, but today I was poring
loser
over a
and didn't do
script
that.
that I've revised like 50 times at this point,
you
and
should
still
probably do
haven't.
it again.
I probably should, honestly. And I'm probably going to start from scratch here in a bit, but
I don't know if that's a revise, but yeah, it's more like a redo. But yeah,
yeah, pretty much.
maybe you should call that video "redo" for script writing instead of "redo" for healer.
Redo of healer, redo of
That
script
works too.
writing.
There you go.
No, it's starting my fucking sanity from zero. That's what it is.
Well, I mean, when you play Don't Starve together, that's kind of how it works. You die, you come back. Anyway, so on Side Scrollers, there was a conversation in which Floodzilla and Blabs were kind of opposed. I don't want to say opposed, but like they were on the same page. Where was it? Red Bandana Gaming? Is that the place?
Huh?
Josh? Red Bandana Gaming? Is that the other guy?
No, Sucker Punch. Wasn't it? Are you talking about the company?
No, I'm talking about the guy who's guesting.
Oh no, they
He
just
was
have him as Logan. I don't know.
I think it was Red Bandana Gaming, I believe. He was underneath
Okay.
Blab's picture next to Floodzilla.
Yeah.
Him and Stuttering
yeah.
Craig kind of played devil's advocate on the other side. So there was some
Yeah.
conversations going on about the Ghost of Yotei stuff with Erika Ishii and all of her retardation lined up in one.
Lunacy.
Yeah. And Blabs kind of went on a anti-censorship thing when it's just like, I don't think you understand anti-censorship. Like she's against censorship.
Yeah.
Well, if you
Of
want
people.
to say more dumb stuff, tune into the fucking Weebs and Waifus streams.
Well, I do. I know there's plenty of that, but I expect nothing less.
Okay.
But
As long as we're on the same page here, okay. I just need to throw shots at her because she likes to throw shots at me.
Well, she doesn't know who I am, so
she doesn't know who I am either. But every time I super chat something, she always wants to pick a fight.
I mean,
Nice.
That's Blabs.
Her tomboy nature.
She's what we call a strong, independent woman. Yeah. I say that with all the love in my heart.
Yeah.
I have no problem with Blabs, by the way. I'm just fucking.
I don't have a
being an
problem
ass
with
on the
Blabs
internet.
either. I just have a problem with their arguments.
Yeah.
So
let's get back. Sorry for derailing this. Let's get back on track.
I mean, it was kind of in the circle. You kind of helped me shorten the story a little bit. So basically, people having a problem with Erika Ishii is something that Blabs has a problem with, because she thinks that people are targeting Erika Ishii, which is not the case. So people pointing out Erika Ishii's posts and how like overblown she is and totally politically activated she is on basically everything. Yeah, she's a hateful person. She's kind of a scumbag in every way possible that you can think of. Doesn't have really any redeeming qualities that I could think of. Maybe she's a decent actor. I don't know, because I've only seen her in a couple things. I know she does voice acting in Guild Wars 2 as a character that I don't like. And I didn't like the character well before I knew who had played her. So, but in terms of like the concept of censorship is a strange one because there's two things and both ultimately do count as censorship, but they're two different routes to take. So Squash and I were having a bit of a, I don't know, a roll in the mud, if you will. And let me see if I can find it. Because Blabs was kind of straw manning some people's arguments. And I'm not saying everybody was making the same argument in this way. Maybe she was hitting the one person in chat that said this, because I keep hearing this about this one person in chat in virtually every forum I go to, and that's the standard for everybody. It's like, well, this one person was saying racist stuff, and I'm like, that doesn't mean squat to the rest of chat. But
There was one
Okay,
person
well, I say
calling her a
dumb shit. Does
pedophile,
that
which is
mean every?
weird.
I say dumb shit. Does that mean everyone here is a fucking retard like me?
No.
yes,
What? Maybe.
But in terms of
Continue.
like, when you're saying someone's censoring somebody, the poster child that we have for this kind of thing is like the Gina Carano situation. I mean, I'm not saying that she's the first, but she's definitely the most pronounced as of recent years. But when somebody does something, aka, or in this case, doesn't do something, like bend the knee to somebody else because they don't agree with them politically, but they're off on their private thing or whatever, and you're like, okay, that is whatever it is. But your company is still going to have a reputation because of that person. Now, in Gina Carano's situation, she didn't say anything bad. What she said is, don't hate your neighbor. Well, but what she really said was beep bop
How
boop.
dare she?
She said beep bop
Yeah.
boop, which is seen as a mockery of pronouns.
The mockery of the
Sacred
sacred
pronoun.
texts.
The mockery of the sacred pronoun text, yes. So what happens is that the company she's working for at the time, Disney, Lucasfilm specifically, basically is like, we're gonna yank her out and get rid of her, even though they had plans to do more stuff with her because she's a popular character despite being a side character and not being like super crazy big. I mean, she's a strong, independent woman that's actually good that everybody likes. The only people who don't like him are those bigots that have pronouns. But
Yep.
what can I say? They hate women.
Ironic that they finally make a strong, independent woman that people like, and then the people that they normally cater to don't like her and get rid of her.
Well, it's not that they normally cater to; it's just that they think it's a larger audience than it actually is. But the vitriol I hear from people who aren't like pronoun people, like the normies, they're like, "What? You don't support people with doing their pronouns?" Is like, why do you? Like, why do you care? It's not you. Nobody's insulting anybody else. If somebody's trying to bully someone into doing pronouns and they decide they don't want to do pronouns and they make a joke, I'm sorry. The bullying is the worst part of this, not the joke. At this point, I don't think there's a joke you could say. Even the most offensive joke would still not be as offensive as the bullying itself.
I agree.
That's just my 2 cents. Now, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I feel like that should be, kind of common human knowledge, right?
I'd have been
Right?
like, bullying should not be accepted, and every single person who bullies should be deplatformed.
It's a picture of that guy like standing up in the crowd. I believe bullying should be unacceptable.
Well, there are some
Yeah.
people that should be bullied.
But
Some.
see, how do you define bullying?
Whatever hurts my fifis.
Basically, yes. Now,
Right.
I do say
Like-
it kind of tongue in cheek because I don't really want people to be deplatformed, but I also don't want them to be a movement of deplatforming other people. Because, like, if somebody says something stupid, the best thing you can do is let them keep talking, because then they just keep saying stupid stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
But in the reality of things is that if you leave that door open too long, then people will use it as a weapon against you and people who agree with you. So when Gina Carano's there and somebody's like, "We want you to take it down," they make this big stink about it, and then Lucasfilm will come in because Lucasfilm doesn't care. They want to look good to some specific small, tiny minority that doesn't really exist
Mhm.
because they just whine a lot, and then they come up and they pop out somebody, they get somebody deplatformed from a show going after someone's livelihood. I don't think those people should be deplatformed, but I do think that maybe there's some legal repercussions from Gina's perspective where she goes after them for, going after her and bullying her and harassing her, etc., for that kind of stuff, because she did actually lose something. She lost income. She lost a whole bunch of stuff because of their bullying and harassment techniques. And last time I checked, you're not allowed to harass people. Like, you're going to get at least a civil lawsuit. I don't think it's not really a criminal lawsuit, but you'll get a civil lawsuit out of it. And that should be enough to terrify the people from doing it, because they don't want to lose a whole bunch of money to somebody who has a whole case on them.
Right.
And because of Disney is now going to be crapping their pants, because we're about to go to Discovery, which will take about a year. But through that Discovery, if we find out a whole bunch of stuff that they're not telling the investors and stuff, the shareholders, woo, they're going to get hit with so many lawsuits, and they're already in debt. Like, it's not going to be pretty for Disney. And they should know this, but they probably don't pay attention to it. Now, in this particular instance, I'm seeing like, okay, censorship to me is silencing somebody by going after their job, like going to their job and saying, this person is a bigot, this person's a racist, this person's this person's that, or whatever, and trying to actively destroy them. But then they leave that, they go somewhere else, you follow them, and you're trying to actively end them. As opposed to what Blabs had been mentioning, which was basically what she perceives as the same thing in terms of talking about it. It's like, okay, if Ghost of Yotei has an activist actress, and it's like, well, it's not a big deal, she's just a voice. I'm like, no, she's literally the face of the character. It's her face. You can't get away from that. Like, well, if you don't want to hear her voice, just change to Japanese, which I do anyway. But the problem is, I still have to see her face, her interactions, everything. It's still her. You can't unsee her. And it's the same thing. It's like, once you see...
Oh, is this a case of the character being modeled after the...
She's the mocap actress.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, so like, if it
Yeah,
were
probably
somebody
is
else's face, and all I switched to Japanese, I probably wouldn't care as much. I still think it'd be a bad marketing move. Excuse me. From Sucker Punch's perspective. But as I had mentioned to Squash, they're not even the same studio as they were when they did Ghost of Tsushima. So, like, expecting the same thing, not going to be what you'd expect, because from what I understand, they basically took all the assets from Ghost of Tsushima and pulled them into Ghost of Yotei. So I don't even know how much actual work they did on it besides just modifying it. So
That might save them some money.
well, it would save
the
them
game
money,
looks great.
but you have to still change it, because Ghost of Tsushima did so well on PS4 that I got a PS5 release, and it's been phenomenal for the Sucker Punch team that did it. But it's been so long since Ghost of Tsushima came out to now that they could easily have changed the entire studio. And I don't know what percentage exactly of the studio changed, other than the main people that did the writing and the main core development of the Ghost of Tsushima
The
game
important
aren't
parts.
there. The important parts aren't there anymore. And they brought in a lot of younger, and this is the same story with basically every other studio. Is they brought in some young blood that don't really have much experience, or they're completely politically motivated and driven by whatever ideologies they adhere to, and then that's what they're there for. And you can tell them by looking at them. You're like, yep, whatever you picture in your brain, that's the accurate one, because that's what they typically are. It's very rare to see a normal person like that, unless it's a white woman. Then in that case, it's very normal that way. But it's the before after college pictures you see. But in this particular instance, mentioning like, hey, Sucker Punch is, they have this activist character or activist actress doing all this type of stuff, and people have a problem with that because she's kind of, well, crazy. And she's not loud about the game aspect, but she is loud in every other aspect. which means that when people are like, "Oh, who's this character?" or "Who's this actress?" they find out who the actress is, but then they're going to find all the other stuff with it. It would have been smart for Sucker Punch, which you think they would have done. So either they support it because they knew, or they didn't know because they didn't do their due diligence. They got an actress that is extremely controversial, which you should not do for business reasons.
Especially not in this day and age, no.
Gina Carano was not a controversial figure until she did Beat Bop Boop. That's literally it. She had a big fan base from UFC. I'm honestly surprised she didn't go into wrestling, but she had a big following because of Mandalorian. She's been in other films and she's done pretty well. She was in Deadpool. Like, I mean,
I always
she
forget she was in that.
yeah, she was the
I forgot she was in that too. Yeah.
a macho woman who just beats the snot head to head with
Angel.
Colossus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just
That
like,
was pretty fun.
and it's like, she has a decent following. She's not a controversial figure until she apparently says, "Don't be like, don't be the Nazis to your neighbors. Don't be like
Just
the
don't-
German
yeah.
how the Germans treated their neighbors when Hitler went into office. Don't
Don't-
be
you know
that
what-
way, America." And it's just like,
Like no, specifically she said, "Do not let your government turn you against your neighbors," which is like a universal thing.
which would be obvious. Well, duh. I mean, it obviously
Yeah.
wasn't that way for Germany in 1942, but yeah.
What you're forgetting is that I don't think any of these people have really read like actual history.
No,
What is this?
none of
What
them
is this?
do.
What is this history you speak of? Anyway,
I don't know, maybe something you should consider checking out, people, please.
well,
like
I can't check it out if you don't tell me what it is. Remember,
That makes sense.
Sage, you're backing me up. Attaboy. Crimson's
read
too
a
lost in
fucking
Minecraft.
book, you monglets, okay? That's what I have to say.
I have read
Yeah.
more books than you have, good sir.
You are probably correct, unless we count manga. Maybe then I stand a chance.
Doubtful.
And I mean, a lot of people can argue that what she was saying was starting to happen. During the
that's not an
2020.
argument. We had literal, actual proof of it. But yeah.
Yeah.
But the point being is that she said that, and people were like, "Oh, she's pro-Trump," and I'm like, "Are you implying that his opponent would not be that way? Are you implying Hillary Clinton is not going to be divisive in any shape or form? Because I'm pretty sure she was nothing but divisive at the time, regardless of what your
Biden,
feelings
too.
were on her.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
Only against those that are not part of the team.
yeah, it's like
Yep.
whatever ideology I am a part of, the other ones obviously clearly don't know what they're doing. But there was just there's just some silliness involved with it that just I don't know why they went the route that they went in terms of like thinking this is the same thing. Like somebody who's not a controversial person versus somebody who's very much a controversial person. And especially how sensitive the video game industry is and volatile. And obviously this has been a couple years in development, but even in the recent years, it's still been pretty controversial. Like the climate has been a whole nother level. So people are popping off like firecrackers left and right. And what are you supposed to do? You can't just expect to bring somebody in who's this is going to set off some firecrackers. It's guaranteed to happen. But pointing out that I don't want to support this game because of this. Like people could have gone to like the Star Wars communities or whatever and say, I don't want to support this game because of Gina Carano. That's fine. Because that they can say that's not censorship. That's voting with your wallet. But if somebody's going and saying, let me go after her and get her fired, not even on the Star Wars stuff, on her personal account where she wasn't saying anything controversial, you just didn't like it because you thought you were being victimized or something. So, but ultimately it's going to have a similar, if not the same, when it comes to censorship. Because from the flip side, that Blab's bypass near the end of side scrollers. And Flodzilla was kind of with her on the same concept, but Flodzilla kept saying something over and over again that kind of drove me nuts. Where he's just like, I just don't care about the game lore. I'm like, so you're coming into a game that people care about, saying you don't care, and thinking your opinion is valid for some reason in that regard. Now you could stay out of the conversation and say, I don't really mind if it does this route or if it goes this route. Like, that's not a big deal. I just want the game to be good. That's fine. But going in and saying you don't care, but then you still have an opinion is kind of, I don't know, kind of a douchey thing to say to people who actually do care about stuff. It's like going into 40K and saying, I don't care if they have female custodies as long as the game plays good. And then people like Henry Cavill being like, what? Rude. But it's just, that threw me well. Now, to be fair, he was trying to pull away from everything as much as he possibly could. And I get that. I don't know the guy. I'm not gonna like condemn the guy or anything, but it came across as the wrong way to me. And but he was still kind of supporting Blabs, and Blabs was going off about like, well, but this is all censorship. But they kept saying, well, if you don't want to buy it, you don't have to buy it, and just wait. And she's like, yeah, you can just wait. And then if you see it, you don't want it because of this. And I'm thinking, Blabs, that's the same thing you were just talking about, but rolled back to a different way of saying it. Because in the end, when you vote with your wallet, you're voting for censorship in a shape or form. Because if you're going to the company and saying, I'm not supporting your game or your company while this person works here by choosing not to buy your products, or in this case, rent your products, depending on where you're buying them. There's no buy anymore. If I'm going that route, they will lose that product, will just cost them money. The company will probably lose a bunch of employees. The studio might even shut down because you decided you didn't want to vote with your wallet. So you censored an entire studio successfully as a collective group of people all over the place that did not agree on something that the studio provided for you. That's
It's not really
technically
censorship.
Well, it is.
It's not really because
It-
it's a boycott. Well, you yourself are choosing not to
Boycotts are a
support the
form of
game.
censorship. Ultimately, they're censorship. They're not the same type of censorship, but they're ultimately both censorship. Shutting down an entire studio means they don't have a voice anymore. They're not putting out games
but they
anymore.
do have a voice. It's
They
just
don't.
that no one's listening.
Yeah.
Well, no. If they close the entire studio, there's no voice anymore. It's gone. They had an option for a voice. People didn't like what they had to say and didn't buy their product, and the game went down the drain.
And they can
studio
still
closed.
talk.
As individuals, yes, not as a project, no.
Yeah, because the project didn't sell.
Even if you censor someone directly, like going after their job, like Gina Carano, she can still talk.
Yeah.
So that
And that's why she's not being censored.
Censorship doesn't mean inherently that you cannot speak ever again. It just means that I should say in the context of a culture war, censorship does not equate to it's more like if you dox somebody, if you're harassing somebody. On the major side of censorship implies I'm going after you because of the words you said, the lifestyle you lead, blah 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 blah. If Gina Carano was a lesbian woman or something, then that could have ricocheted right back at somebody else with the modern culture at the time, and it might have protected her. But if Pedro Pascal can do his whole pro-Nazi speech thingy and anti-Jew rant or whatever, and she says beep bop boop, and she's getting crucified and he's not, it's clearly because of it's a bullying tactic. It's a censorship thing. They like him because he agrees with them on political ideas. They don't like her because political ideas. So the censorship is we're trying to remove you from the playing field. The playing field being Hollywood. The playing field being in the open view and the good graces of everyone involved. Because most people in Hollywood are not going to touch Gina Carano with the 3 billion foot pole. Like they're not going to do that.
I mean, but that's a very long pole.
Well, yes, that's the point. It's hyperbolic language to express.
You can't buy a pole longer than 39.5 feet.
But you can buy a lot of 39-foot poles that you can put together to make a really big pole.
Yeah, but why would you do that?
So you could match the
Because I
hyperbolic lens,
fucking
which I just
can.
gave.
We live in America.
That
We're allowed
too!
to do whatever the
America!
fuck we want. See,
That's fair.
we're not
That's
restricted
fair.
by your puny European logic.
Yeah, because, Sage, we want to be able to poke you from across the big pond without actually coming to your country or your continent.
Sure,
have
I thought that was
we're
just
gonna have
a
it.
missile.
We're gonna have an army of drones just holding this thing across the just to come over and poke you. That's a Guinness Book of World Records right there. But if you're
Yeah.
doing that, you might as well build a freaking bridge. That'd be a long bridge.
Might as well.
But
Well, I mean, there's
Bridge to
some
Hawaii, right?
extra engineering issues
no, it'd be
involved in
like
that.
100 times bigger than the bridge to Hawaii. But the point being is
No,
that
actually, it's not.
it's not. I don't know how far Hawaii actually is from America. but
It's Hawaii is really far away, actually.
yeah, I don't even count it as a state anymore. It's kind of a dumpster fire. It's also too hot for my taste, so yeah. But like censorship is ultimately in the cultural context. Censorship is removing somebody from a place of ability to impress upon someone else something, a message, good or bad, or whatever the case might be. Doxing them, going after them, calling their workplace, that kind of stuff. That's like true censorship. About as clear censorship as you can possibly get. Technically, if you're going by they can still talk, nobody has ever been censored ever in the history of ever because everybody can still talk unless they're dead.
Right, but they can still talk in a public sphere.
Yes, but without a job, it means to take care of it because you went after their work. You went after their livelihood. When you're going after a company saying, company, why did you make this decision? Like, because if it was something like when Sonic, do you remember when the Sonic movie came out?
Yeah.
You remember the huge backlash for that?
Yeah.
Nobody
Yep.
censored them. They just made constructive criticism saying, this is
Yep.
not the way you need to go. And I'm not going to spend money on this type of product. They listened, they changed it,
So
and
that's
it
not
became a hit.
censorship?
I would not count that as censorship unless you hit the ultimate censorship. Because they changed.
So why does it count if not everyone buys, say, Concorde?
Well, it counts because in that. Well, I don't know if Concord. I don't think the studio shut down. They like rebranded and they took it back, redid some stuff, and then are throwing it back out as a different name or something. But
I think that's the plan. Yeah.
That's apparently the plan so far because they put $400 million into that stupid game. I cannot believe
Not
it.
gonna let it die that easily.
They can't afford to. They have to make money back from it. That's not even a
They have
tax
to do
put up at
something
this
with
point.
it.
But something like that wasn't even censorship. That was just people saying, I don't even care.
Yeah. So why is it censorship if you don't buy stuff that you don't like?
If you go to the extreme levels on a mass scale and the studio shuts down, you've literally cut off you cut off
Right.
their studio's livelihood in technicality. It's all censorship.
But say
technically.
everyone in the world decides we don't want Rings of Power, right? I'm not going to buy
Amazon
it.
would still do it because they're turds, but they can afford to.
Right. But let's hypothetically go to a situation where they didn't have Amazon Prime and they had to sell it in order to make money. And it's not Amazon, so
Nobody's
they're not
buying it.
rich, right? And nobody is buying it. Is that censorship? If
Technically, yes.
everyone individually decided, oh, it doesn't look like something I want, I'm not going to try and see it.
I would say if people are actively talking about how they're not going to get it, yes. If just nobody cared and nobody showed up, no, because it's not censorship. But if people are saying I am not going to buy this, like they're being verbal about their wallet, they're not just being silent.
Right, but why does it matter that you stated that publicly?
That's the censoring aspect. You're saying I disagree with this, and until you change it, I'm not giving you my money.
Right,
It's basically a verbal pledge to not do something unless something changes, and you're censoring the concept in which they are trying to offer you.
Yeah, I don't think this is really.
I'm not saying it's
different.
the same censorship as the other censorship.
So
I'm saying it ultimately ends up being censorship if people lose their jobs, and the studio closes down, and people lose a lot of money.
No, I think
Because that's
just
what
survival of the
censorship does.
fittest. That's not censorship.
I said it was censorship technically. I didn't say it was censorship.
Yeah,
in the
but I
exact
don't
same
think
form.
it is technically censorship.
But it is. Because in one, you're actively going after somebody. You're saying, I want this person fired from their job. I want their family dead. I want their house burned down. I want their planet exploded.
But that's not what's happening, though.
I know. I'm saying in that vein, you're actively going after a person. Well, on the other side, you're actively going after a game because they're doing something you don't like. Well, I don't like this person. I don't like Gina Carano because she's not being pronoun friendly. I don't like Dragon Age because they're doing this. I don't like Ghost of Yotei because they're. But that's the thing is, people are actively going after it. Just because I'm not censoring somebody doesn't mean there aren't people censoring them.
So, you don't buy the game, right? I'm assuming you won't.
That depends. I'm waiting to find more information.
Right, but if you do not, and you said to some random person online, "Oh yeah,"
I mean, literally for them to solve this problem, all they literally have to do is change the face of the character.
Right, but I think it's only censorship.
Be a good game as well.
If you specifically threaten the person with, "I'm not going to do this unless you do this other thing," or rather, I'm going to try and convince a bunch of people.
If everybody said, I am not going to
it.
buy Ghost of Yotei until Eric Ishii is fired and is no longer
Yeah,
given work
okay,
on the
that's
thing,
censorship. But if everyone just
there are
says,
people
"Oh,
actively calling for that." I'm not saying they should do that. I'm saying they should have known that this was going to happen, and they don't need the marketing problem. Like the marketing is already great for it.
Only if you're actively going after the company and saying, "Change this or else."
That's if you're going after a specific person. But if you're going after a project because of the way the project is being done,
change this or else.
Yeah,
that's required for it to be censorship.
Well, you're actively harming someone's income or livelihood, potentially their job.
Sure. That's what I'm
saying.
that
not what the first censorship is? They're doing the same thing.
It's not that if you just say, "Oh, this is something you did," well, I don't care. I don't want it.
I agree that one is you're making somebody aware of something, and that you're also not going to support that thing that you've made them aware of while it's active, as opposed to being like, I want your director fired, I want your actors fired, I want your devs fired, blah 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 blah, or I'm not getting money. Those are different things.
Mm-hmm.
They're both technically censorship.
I don't think so.
Well,
the second one technically is not.
Why is it technically not?
Because it's technically missing the part that is the censorship.
Which is?
The threat.
The threat of not buying it?
No, the threat of not buying it unless they do something that you want them to do.
But why does it have to be? I mean, they're both the same thing. I'm not buying the game until you fire somebody. I'm not buying the game until you fix
censorship.
They're both threats of something.
Is about actively making sure someone doesn't do something.
If you raise hell about an individual person, a company, a project, or a left turn signal in Crazy Taxi, what is the difference? You're still raising hell.
Yeah.
If you censor a project, you're not censoring one person, you're censoring multiple people. If you censor a whole project, you could potentially censor the entire studio, which loses a lot of people money, it loses their livelihood, all of which are goals of individual censorship.
If that is your goal, sure. But
that's usually the goal of censorship. I'm not saying that every single person is on that
train. If you don't do it because of certain things, it's necessarily censorship.
In what situation is it not necessarily censorship? Ultimately,
because
under the technicality.
If you just, for example, say we have Ghost of Tsushima, but the next one, I forgot what it's already called.
Yotei.
Yeah, whatever. Right.
Everybody says it. So just like, I'm European, I can't say that word.
Yes. So say that game comes out, it's not great, right? Because of the stuff that they put in. If I then choose to not buy it, and maybe I say, "Oh yeah, I don't like it because of this, so I'm not going to buy it. That's not censorship because I'm not participating in their thing.
If you're just saying to yourself, I'm not going to buy that, I have no interest, that's not
So
censorship.
why
If
does
you're going out and
why does
telling
it
the company,
change?
because you're
But
telling
I'm
the
not
company.
telling the company.
I know that's what I'm saying. That's not censorship. I'm talking about people who actively go to the company and say, you need to change this or I'm not giving you money.
Yeah, but that's like one person in 10 million.
That's how censorship works. It's one person in 10 million. That's
But
Gina
then
Carano.
it's not censorship, though.
Censorship is the
Only
goal to
if they
silence somebody
listen
and punish them for
to that
whatever it
one
is they
person.
did. But it's not just one person. There's hundreds of them. Remember, there's millions,
Yeah, but the
hundreds of
others
millions of
aren't
gamers.
censoring. They're just not interested.
I know there's the people who just aren't interested and they don't have a comment. They're just like, I'm not interested in that. Or maybe they were, and then they're like, because of that, I don't want to anymore. And they just don't say anything. They just don't buy it. That's
Yeah,
not
but
censorship.
That's not censorship.
But saying to the company, you need to change this or I'm not buying it,
Sure.
is a technical form of censorship because
If
people's
that is
jobs
what you
are
do,
at
then
risk.
yes, sure.
But they have the exact same mentality as those who don't tell the studio that. The only difference is they actively told the studio because it's a pursual of a better result in their mind.
Yeah, sure.
But they're literally 1-to-1 ratios. Person doesn't like what they see. They go talk to somebody about it. They go try to put somebody out of their job. They go do this. They go do that. It's just like, it's literally like a 1-to-1 ratio when people are actively pursuing it. But you just saying, I just don't feel like buying it, which is fine. Nobody deserves your money. That's not censorship. That's just you saying that's not the product for me. Now, even if you share sentiments with other people who are actively mentioning it, but you're not supporting it because you just don't want to, because that's not what you're into, that's not censorship.
Yeah.
It's the actively pursuing of it that is censorship. But both, one's not actively going after the person. One is saying, I'm not cool with this content because this content is against, gamers in a whole. Like, don't put political messaging into a non-political game. But the devs nowadays come back with saying every game's political. And it's like, but they're not, though. I showed up to kill freaking, alien scumbags that are trying to destroy my planet. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to hear about trans inclusion or gay inclusion or straight inclusion. I'm not here for any of that. I'm just here to kill bugs. I'm here to kill machines. I'm here to kill squishy blue aliens that are just in all different places of the galaxy. That's what I'm here for. That's all we want. We're just gamers.
Which squishy blue aliens are these?
I don't even know. I just kind of made it up off the top of my head.
Okay.
I have no idea. Probably the Avatar ones.
That's fair. Yeah,
They're all squishy under a tank. Yep. Ribson, thoughts? Putting you on the spot.
Me on the spot? Fuck
yeah,
you.
On the spot. Hey!
Look, I have tuned out of a lot of the culture war stuff because it's gotten exhausting, to be honest. That's why I almost predominantly watch anime at this point.
By the way, I can barely see your face.
Oh, I forgot to turn a light on in here. That's what happened.
I just realized I'm in darkness. I should just open my eyes and realize, wow, it's really dark in here.
Well, I'm staring at screens the whole time.
You can't tell that you're in the dark because I can really tell when lights are on.
Look, I have 2 attention slots in my brain capacity. Yes, exactly. I can go.
It's like, but yes, and you're
special, Captain.
Well, you are special, that's for sure. Mama always told me I was special.
I generally do not keep up with a whole lot of this stuff anymore. It gets to the point where I understand what you're saying about the censorship, how we're kind of doing it both ways, right? Am I getting that?
There are different ways to end up both technically at censorship, but one's actively harassing somebody, one's saying, I don't like what you put in your product.
Okay, so if someone says, hey, this is in the product, maybe you shouldn't buy it, is that technically considered censorship? Or is that just just a statement of, hey, this is what's in it, and maybe if you don't like this thing, you shouldn't do it?
Because technically,
I would say no.
It's technically, most of the time, it's not, hey, studio, I'm not buying your crap until you fix this. That's not normally how it comes out. Normally it comes out with, hey, letting you know I'm not interested in this because of this content in your stuff. It's normally what it is.
No.
They'll fail off of the silent majority.
Normally, what it is people don't talk to the company at all.
Well, nobody talked to Zhao because nobody showed up.
I don't know what Zhao is even.
Zhao's the one, the Metroidvania one we were talking about earlier.
Oh, okay. Is that called Zhao? Okay.
Well, Zhao's the last part of the name. I don't remember the rest of it.
I
Probably
don't even pay attention to like a lot of these new games because I can usually assume that I'm not going to be too terribly excited about them, except for in the cases of like Monster Hunter Wilds or something like that, a continuation of a game that
apparently there's an open beta.
I take every
Yeah.
game individually. I look at it. Does it intrigue me? Does it interest me? That's whether or not I want to step into that. Even the discussion of whether or not I care about it. Like people who grew up on Perfect Dark on 64, they're gonna be like, "Ooh, they're making a new Perfect Dark," and then they see the woman's face and be like, "That's a man."
Oh yeah, yikes!
Yeah.
That's when they're gonna be tuning out. And then that's the thing is, it's like making them aware, like, "Hey, I want to play your game, but I'm not interested in your game." Yeah. Well, why wouldn't you? You want to have a good game, don't you?
Look,
Sure.
if we can
Do you
bully
want to
the
protect the
creators
games you are
of Sonic the Hedgehog
You want to
into
play a
doing
good
what we
game,
want,
sure. So why do you want to play their game?
I don't want to play their game. I want to play a Perfect Dark game. Same thing for
I want to
Tomb
play
Raider.
more
I don't
Monster
want
Hunter.
to
That's
play
what I want to play.
modern Tomb Raider. I want to play Tomb Raider. I want to be Lara Croft. I want to go around raiding tombs. I want to shoot some stuff. I want to do puzzles. That's what I want to do. I don't want to play Larry Croft, whatever crap they're putting out now.
That's not their game though, so
I don't know what I'm saying. When a company has a thing like Perfect Dark, literally, if you look at Perfect Dark and Fable, when it comes to their main characters, they pulled a Sonic. That's literally what they did. Here's this horrendous drawing of this creature of the series that is beloved. We'll change it and people will buy it. It's literally that simple. Remove the content that people don't want in the game. Like Fable has a pretty decent quote unquote woke record. You could have gay people in it. Okay. Nobody complained about that because it wasn't the selling point of the game. It was just pick how you want to play. It was the Skyrim before Skyrim. It's just like, do you want to be a dude that's in a relationship with a dude? Do it. Nobody cares. Single player game anyway.
I mean, I personally don't want to be a dude in a relationship with another dude, but you do.
I'm going to pass.
You don't want to be in a relationship with a dude. You just want to be the dude in a dude, or a dude that's in your dude.
Well, yes, because it's only considered bad to be a homosexual if you're the bottom.
True. Yeah.
No. It's bad either way. Don't worry. But yeah, that's some Greek mythology right there. Metatron, yeah. But no, it's like when you play a game, it's not that it has quote unquote woke elements in it. Baldur's Gate 3, Fable series, they have quote unquote woke elements in it, but they don't sell you the game based on it. They say, here's a fun adventure game where you can do whatever you want. You can be the good guy, you can be the bad guy, you can do this, you can do that. Have fun. That's their selling point. But when you go in and say, look at this manly man of madness. That's a woman. And look at his manly manliness. You're just like, could you just make him less manly and more feminine? Because that's what Perfect Dark is. It's a hot bombshell secret agent type character that goes in and does stuff.
Wow. Not anymore, it isn't.
Exactly. And that's the problem with that particular thing. So if you go in and say, hey, I'd like you to fix this so I can enjoy this addition to the series I like. Like, I like this series, so can I not?
Why don't you like it the way it is, you bigot?
Because I'm a bigot, obviously. Like, I care about accuracy. I care about the lore. I care about things I enjoy. Like, I don't want to play a Turok game where they turn all the dinosaurs into unicorns. That's not what I'm all about. I don't mind killing unicorns. Just put them in a different game. Call it like Charlie the Unicorn hunting Cabela's.
I want Helldivers, but
so like
with unicorns.
Basically, Monster Hunter, but with unicorns. But not with the Monster Hunter terrible system that they have, because Capcom sucks at systems, but that's a good story.
Capcom kind of fucking sucks ass at a lot of things, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, and it's the fighter game illness that everybody has, where they have to make everything freaking motion locked, and I hate it with a passion. Animation locked. You just make fluid gameplay. That's all you got to do. It's that simple. Fluid gameplay.
Is it simple though?
Animation canceling, all that kind of stuff.
But
Uh-oh.
that's not fluid. That's
The chancla is coming.
But it is, because if you're going to punch, but then you change to block, like that's fluid.
yeah, but it's not though, is it?
But it is. Because if you ever watch
because
actual people fight, that's how they do it. They don't get
Yeah, no, I
animation
get
lock.
that. I get that. But if you do a punch and then instantly you teleport to a different pose,
They already do that in these games. They just don't do them.
but
For
slightly less
everything.
so.
I've seen people like in full on like long stretch kicks, and all of a sudden they're doing this in like a blink of an eye. And I'm like, I don't know how you did that, but it never works for me. So maybe there's like a secret control combination you got to do to be able to jump between those animations. But most
Maybe,
animations,
but to make it look fluid, you need to do a whole lot of extra work.
maybe. But if you do that whole lot of extra work, guess who's going to buy a lot of your stuff?
Well, just
Everyone.
you.
No, everyone. If you're only good at fighting games because of animation locks, that means you suck at games. But the point being is that as we're moving on into further and further into the gaming world as a whole, and how they're advancing technologies and they're trying to bring in more immersive situations with better graphics, better worlds, like the big quote unquote selling point of Dragon Age Veilguard is that the hair doesn't clip and it's flowy and smooth. That's their selling point.
Where the hair doesn't clip?
Apparently it doesn't clip. It just flows over all the armor and just...
I refuse to believe that.
They have entire videos apparently about this. I've seen
Oh,
them.
fuck.
That's where they
Okay.
put all the boob and ass budget.
Okay, so
And it's just like, hey,
I'm supposed to play this
That's not a-
fantasy game for the hair physics?
it's not a bad hair physics. I mean, they have mods for that for Witcher 3, so you can have Geralt's hair be flowing like Fabio and look nice. But it's not built into the game. So if you had the games like Witcher 3 with that built into it, boom. But some modder by themselves did it. Why is a frick can not an entire company of very good developers do it?
Are they very good developers?
I mean, Witcher 3 was freaking banging.
Oh, no,
dude.
I was talking about Veilguard.
Oh, well, the thing is I don't think they are, but apparently they can do really thick hair and sick in a good way.
Interesting.
I mean, so far from what I've seen, the hair is the only good aspect. That's mostly because it doesn't clip with stuff. But I'm not there to care about the hair. I want the gameplay to be good. I don't want it to be boring. I don't want it to be repetitive. I don't want additional real world stuff shoved into a game that doesn't exist in the same plane of existence as me.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's those things that I'm like, you're throwing me for a loop. You're not keeping me involved with this. So why would I care? But if you can do it in fighting games, I mean, Dead or Alive has boob physics. It's got butt physics to a certain extent, but they can pull it off. Although the age thing's a bit weird, but that's funny at the same time. You go to 0, they don't bounce at all. You go to 99, they flop like their grandmas. It's freaking funny. But
What the heck?
it's like a joke thing. So if you can take a game
Ain't that what you
and
want,
say,
guys?
I want to be able to have all of my stuff be immersive, you do basic things that a human would do. If you're punching somebody, but you realize, oh shoot, like if you're going for a punch, but then you can change and like pop their hand and counter it, make that a thing you can do in the game. The whole point of fighting is that you find an opening. Well, you're not finding an opening if it's obvious you're going to be locked to do something, because that's why if you watch Super Smash Bros. Or any like the professional fighter games, they're sitting there like in block mode, dashing and putting their little shell of protection around them, and they just sit there and they go past each other for like 20 minutes because they're always waiting for the other person to make the wrong move. They don't do anything because there's no actual fighting. It's like a boxing game where the boxers just go like this and just run in circles for 45 minutes. It's not even entertaining You can't say I'm the best because you can't beat the freaking game in under 45 minutes because you have to wait for somebody else to lock themselves into an animation that you could counter at the last possible second. That's not gaming to me. That's like macro. It's like macroing on an unbelievably autistic scale for something that's not even realistic. What's the point? Go play Pong. You get better results. But be as it may, I disagree with Blabs and Flodzilla about it. Is it Red Bandana Gaming made some good points? I actually really appreciated him. Even Stuttering Craig, who was out of his element, but I did.
It was about a game he didn't know about.
Yeah,
game series.
He couldn't even say the name right. He kept saying Yoto. I think is what he kept saying.
Yeah.
He kept saying Ghost of Yotei, and I was like, "There's not even an O at the end of that. What are you talking about?" It was very weird. But
he's just an old
the
man.
Ghost of Yotei.
I'm an old man, but that's a different story. But
he has different tastes.
Yeah. He's more like hardcore old retro, which I can appreciate because I like old retro stuff too. I can't play them anymore because for whatever reason my brain's now wired to play newer stuff. I've gone back to my old games and I struggle with stuff that back then when I was younger I could do without even having any problems. So I
think I have that prejudice too. Yeah,
it's not a prejudice. It's just I don't have the ability anymore. Maybe it's just because I'm weaponized autism incarnate. I don't know. I cannot do what I used to do. But in the argument, I didn't like how Blabs was painting people who were like, I want to be vocal about this. And she's like, well, that's the same thing as censorship. Like, no, it's not the same thing. It ultimately leads to the same outcome if they're pursued, because if you're going to a company saying you're not going to make money as long as it's this way, and then they continue that way and they lose money and then they close the entire studio down. We've had what, 3 or 4 studios close just this year?
Yeah.
It's like the difference between hey, this chocolate company is putting actual human shit in their chocolate, and
people buy that.
And then
that's real cocoa.
And then actually going out and like just randomly picking a company to target and saying, hey, don't buy their product. If you buy their products, we're gonna bully you.
Basically, it's the cultural significance of the ways you do things. One is saying, I'm going to vote with my wallet, but I'm also going to let you know why I'm voting with my wallet. The other one is saying, you need to ruin this person's life and erase them from human history. Otherwise, we're going to destroy you. Nobody's going in saying, I don't want to buy your game because you have this crap in it. And if you don't change it, I'm going to destroy you. They're saying, if you don't change this, people are going to destroy you by the act of not buying it. And even if they do sell, say, 10,000 copies, if they put that much more money into it, they're going to end up losing money, and it's going to possibly close the studio. But people saying, you're making
Sucker Punch not that big. Sucker Punch is not that big of a company.
They're not super crazy big. They've only done it was like 5 or 7 games, I think, up to this point. Tsushima was definitely their biggest by far, and it was a huge success. But but a lot of these companies, what they do is they like, oh, we put the Joker treatment. We put 50-70 million into this. The next one we're going to put 300 million into, and then they lose horribly on that.
Why would you do
so dumb?
Because for some reason, game developers have this concept where if I put more money into it, it makes the game better. That's not how it works.
Dude, I think it's just turned out that they just have too many unnecessary people in it. Unnecessary jobs.
But it's not that. Like, you could have more people hired if they know what they're doing and you have an actual plan to point A to point B, get to where you need to be, and everybody knows every step of the way what they got to do, because there's like a communications manager that's supposed to go between each of these departments and make sure everybody's on the same page, make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, because some positions can't do stuff until another place is done with their stuff. So it's like an assembly line where, like, I'm going to work on this area of the map. Oh, I think we lost him again. Really, Crimson?
Oh no,
we lost Crimson again.
Anyway,
we'll wait for anyway. Anyways, but yeah, when they put so much effort into basically getting to where we're focusing on this whole area. We finished it, and then we're going to go over here and work on this one. So they pass that area to the next location and let them work on that. And they can work on footfalls. They can work on sound drops. They can do this. They can do that. All that jazz. Those are the kind of things that you're expecting, because why wouldn't you? It's a logical conclusion. Somebody does thing. They did their role, their part of the job. Pass it on to the next person. That person does their job. Pass it on to the next person. But when you're having a smooth flowing process, everybody's moving with it. It's one giant, I don't know, not amoeba, but like it's a living being where it's just a cycle of things. I mean, cells at work is kind of like the emphasis I'm trying to put. Like cells at work is how a game development company should work. You've got the white blood cells delivering white blood cells. You got red blood cells going where they got to go with red blood cells. You've got everything going the way it's supposed to work. Everything works out great. You don't have to spend exorbitant amount of money. Godzilla -1 was like $15 million and made
less. It was less than that.
Oh, it was less than 15? I thought it was
Yeah,
15.
the director said, "I wish I had 15 million for that
Oh,
movie."
did he go like 10
might
million
be
or something?
between 10 to 15 million, or 10 to 14
Either way,
million,
even if it was
about,
15 million, they made what? 700 million or something off of that? Or more?
No, I think they made close to 200 million, maybe.
They
But
made a
that's
good
like way
movie. That's
over.
what they did.
Yeah, they made a
Yeah.
good movie and they made bank and profit because of it.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do. But the thing is, they made that thing look better than $300 million movies. Because it's not the amount of money you throw at it, it's that you know your craft, you showed up with the same concept in mind, you did what you were told, and everything went smoothly. That, I mean, and I say smoothly in comparison because obviously there's hiccups in everything in every industry and whatnot. But ultimately, when it came down, they knew at the beginning what they wanted, and by the end, they had achieved what they wanted in a reasonable time with a reasonable budget. You can do that. You don't got to be Ubisoft and have 18,000 employees to work on one game. My personal belief is that publishers should not be developers because they're not good at it. They're good at selling. They're not good at making. So anytime the publisher shows up, now I think the publisher could have some input. Like if the publisher's like, hey, our marketing team just heard back and a whole bunch of gamers are very upset with what's going on in this, right? Maybe we should change this. And allegedly, the Ghost of Yotei dev team is having a fit because Sony's allegedly having a fit. I don't know if this is accurate. I don't know if this is true, but it wouldn't surprise me because after having a success like Ghost of Tsushima, and from what I understand, the executives at Sony were expecting a Ghost of Tsushima 2. That's what they were expecting. And they got Ghost of Yotei.
They didn't even know that it was going to be basically a different story.
Nope.
And instead of this, they wanted a continuation.
Interesting.
Well, because what worked, and this is par for the course for like any major company, when you have something like a big movie like the Joker, made $1 billion plus, or Super Mario Bros. Or something, the executives taste that money and they want more, so they ask for another. Well, Sony's like, well, that was a huge hit. Give me another one. And they're like, all right, but we're going to change the entire setting. We're going to change the entire location in Japan. We're going to change the entire year of Japan with a entirely different pro tag. And it's not even a man. Like, we're changing everything about this. And it's supposed to be a historical setting. And people have argued, and again, I'm not making any particular, I mean, I probably would have a few months ago. I'm not making any particular condemnations as of right now because of like, there were no historically named female Ronin in Japan in these time periods that they know of.
There was a specific name for them, but they were very rare. They were like,
there's Kunoichi, but those are more like ninja. And then there's the Onabushi. The Onabushi were like basically home protectors, like fort protectors. When the men went out, they different. Yeah, but they're not wandering around with two blades, and it's supposed to be Musashi, the famous blade master.
Musashi Miyamoto. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was the first one to really popularize that technique.
And that's what it's like, playing off of that. So we're like, but then why didn't you go after Musashi Miyamoto? I just butchered his name.
Wasn't there a Musashi though in Ghost of Tsushima?
I don't
I think there was
remember.
someone named that.
I haven't finished the game because I have so many other things to
He was
do.
a boss. He was a boss you could fight, and you can get his gear set.
Well, you didn't win against him because he's only lost once, and it was to a farmer with a bow staff, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you are the. Oh no, wait. You're technically.
You're not you're not a farmer. You're not using a bow staff.
Yeah.
That would see in like an Assassin's Creed game. That would be fun. Being the farmer that beat him with the bow staff would be phenomenal. Like that would be great because then you're like, I'm a part of history. This is fantastic. And of course, the shadows just screw that chance of being happening.
Yep. Well,
but at the very least, this Ghost of Yotei might do better than Shadows. Hopefully.
Oh yeah, I think it will definitely do better because Shadows, from what I understand, is not polished yet, which is why they kept pulling it back. I think, I can't guarantee this, and I can't make sure it's actually going to happen, but I think what they're going to do is they're going to try to reduce Yasuke or Yasuke, however you want to say it, to
Yasuke
a more
is the correct pronunciation.
Yasuke, yeah.
I've heard it differently from Japanese
yeah,
people.
but like people do say Yasuke, they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I'm saying I've heard Japanese people say Yasuke, and I've heard Japanese people say Yasuke. I don't really know. I don't even really care. But
it's pretty much an accent thing.
Okay, well, you know, the slangers. But in terms of like how Ubisoft executives are dealing with this, it seems like they're going to pull Yasuke back a bit and make him more of a minor character, and possibly put the male character that they were expecting to put in back in.
I mean,
because originally there was a rumor saying
if
that they had a whole game plan.
That's good.
And then they changed it to go the route with Yasuke. That was the original rumor. People were like, oh, that's just a rumor. And then Ubisoft employees were like, no, that's literally what we had planned, and we just didn't get it to do that.
See, the issue with that is, I think it's too far along to really change that in the short amount of time that
it would be. There'd be a few cinematics, but you can change the model and the voice actor of the time period. I think they're also going to be removing the rap music. That was a bit over.
But
that was a bit too much.
They should definitely remove that.
But you can remove the storyline and just alter the storyline. Even if it's bad,
the current version has Yasuke in it, right? And
yes, but they also put it on hold for like half a year.
Almost certain that they will use every opportunity to make sure you notice that he's not actually a Japanese person.
Well, yes, but he's going to be the Leonardo da Vinci.
If they change it, they have to redo all of the dialogue.
Dude,
every recording.
You don't need 6 months to polish a game, especially when most of it's polished. It was just some minor bugs. That's not stuff you have to worry about. You're worrying about the reason it's crashing on your marketing department.
I mean, sure, yeah.
And the reason it's crashing is because they're making this big deal about a character who's not that big of a deal. Like,
are they going to go ahead and anger a whole bunch of people who were going to buy it?
There weren't a whole lot of people. That's the whole thing with ZOO. Is thousands of people were like, "Yes, we're gonna. This is a great game," and nobody bought it.
Fair enough.
It just shows.
It's the point. Is
just
that
like what
Shadows is the thing where the reason
do they
that
believe
they're pulling it back is because there's such a hubbub about it. But it doesn't matter about how many customers. Can you get more customers?
What matters is how many do they think they have.
Well, originally they thought they had a lot, but the backlash hit so freaking hard. They're like, crap, we're not getting as many as we thought we were, and we might lose a lot of money. Because I don't remember. Does anybody remember what the
no, of course not.
The budget for Shadows is?
Do they have a budget?
Must be past
probably over 100 million.
Oh, it's easy. It's easily over 100 million. You don't have 18,000 employees to keep that thing cheap.
Yeah, they have thousands of people working.
And they've been working on this for what, 6 years, something like that, 6, 8 years.
Ooh, don't know.
It's been a hot minute. So this isn't something that was like, I think they've been working on it at least since 2020, so probably 4 years or so. But
Oh crap!
there's no way it cost them $100 million with 18,000 employees and this massive game. There's no way. Concord cannot cost 400 million for having a much smaller game. No way. It's not going to happen. But now I kind of want to check, so I'm going to check.
I don't even know how big Concord's game actually is.
Not big enough to save it, apparently.
And you know, it's just this whole thing with you know, like women warriors and stuff. It could be done, I guess, like with the historical thing, not really, but you know, Kill Bill. It's about a woman who's on a revenge, you know, quest, basically, right? If that's her story, you know, it could probably work.
But here's
And
the thing is that they're not going to do a Kill Bill because Kill Bill gets her butt beat a lot. Like in terms of like she takes a lot of damage. She's essentially the John Wick of her universe. You can't have strong female characters get beat up. They can't do that because they don't know how to write character development.
you know what? Maybe you're right because like what you told me, like that the writers that almost if it's about what you said, 3/4 of the staff that worked on the first one are gone.
Well, that's Yotei.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, whether it be Yotei or not, it's like the reason it seems unrealistic. And again, I don't even necessarily care that it's a woman. That's not even like a thing that I'm worried about. It's that I have to see that particular woman no matter what. There's no alternate to like if you have a thing where I can change the face, I don't care.
Characters are women, so was never the issue.
There's a massive rise in female characters in games, like
a
massive rise.
I get that
out of the blue.
But the issue is not the fact that they're women by itself.
Yeah. Now the historicity aspect, I wish it would have gone on with another guy, because there's plenty of guys in Japanese history of those time periods.
Yeah, because in Ghost of Tsushima, there was in history there was a Sakai clan, right? On Tsushima,
a lot of clans.
Yeah, but yeah, I think
there's,
one of the clans
there's minor
was
clans,
the
there's great clans, there's a bunch of other types of like there's a lot to choose from. Total War shortened it by just making great clans essentially with some minor ones that
I heard because what I heard is in that time period, in that area that it's gonna be in, there's like almost no Japanese civilization there. It's supposed to be like some Slavic people that are supposed to be in that area.
Wait, what? Slavic?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
In Japan?
In that
Sorry,
area,
where is this island?
Russian technically would be Slavic, wouldn't it?
Up to the north of Japan.
So is Yotei the name of the island?
No, Yotei is the name of a mountain.
Yotei is a region.
On the islands?
Yotei's in Hokkaido. I believe Yotei's in Hokkaido.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hokkaido. Yeah, Hokkaido. That's why it says Hokkaido is a place where
it's not in the Russian parts.
Hokkaido
that's what I
heavily.
That's what I heard from one guy. I think Metatron said that. Metatron said that a different group of people were in that area until Japan started to settle it.
There's the indigenous people there. Yes.
Yeah, but the Ainu are not remotely
They're not Slavic. I don't think.
Oh, I thought someone said that.
No, they probably misspoke.
Okay.
I do know that there's indigenous people, but I was like Slavic people. That doesn't.
This mountain is also on the part of Hokkaido that's closest to Japan.
What is it? I think I've also heard that Yotei means female mountain. So they're already,
I didn't realize that they had gender
words like
parts.
that. I don't know. It's probably a story that they have to.
You guys played the Mass Effect games, maybe?
No,
I watched a friend do a live stream.
Okay, so they have that. They have the race.
Well, maybe
the blue lady, whatever the blue lady is.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
the ones that everyone like to fuck.
I don't know. Maybe I haven't played it yet. I think I have one of the Mass Effects, but I haven't played it yet.
I mean, that's basically their entire purpose, right?
Right.
Well,
yeah, because
apparently, I don't know if you guys saw the board game shenanigans that happened, but they misspelled some words on the official final product. They didn't do a quality check or something.
Damn.
But they also like it has she they I think it's a she they character, and it was the blue girl. And then somebody comments like, "Well, technically they're genderless." I'm like, how many genderless people you know have boobs or penises or vaginas if they're genderless? They would do
Don't
something else
they?
entirely.
Isn't it to where the way they propagate is they're all female, but they go to other races, but their genes like take over to have
It
I have
doesn't.
kids.
no idea.
They don't all go to other races.
My point
they
was, I don't know why you say genderless while they have gender bits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're all female.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Why is it gender bits on something that doesn't have a gender? Like a male genitalia or female genitalia isn't on a non-male or female thing. That's not how that works. They're genderless. They don't have that function. They would be
Yeah,
like,
and
we breed through spores, or we breed through, merging with
like,
another liquid or something. Like,
or
whatever,
they just like self-divide and shit
yeah,
like that.
they
Like, that
clone
would be
themselves,
I
genderless.
mean,
whatever the case might be. But you wouldn't do it.
they
with
have a bit of
gender.
a weird reproduction method.
That's fine for them to have weird reproductions. My point is that it doesn't make sense to call them genderless and give them gender bits.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
But they're basically
say,
some of the most
well,
feminine, like,
it's genderless,
But to be fair,
but
creatures in that game, right?
to be fair, the Asari also they're not necessarily well, there are theories, let's say, that what you see is not what they actually look like.
Well, those theories,
well, they are theories. Unless they have something factual to back them up, even a slight factual, that I don't know.
Yeah,
how
I don't know
they
exactly if they do, but see, in the game, the humans see them as beautiful female humans, right? The
I know what you mean.
the frog people see them as frog people.
So what you're saying is they're basically just,
There is some
they're changing
mindfuckery going on there.
There's
So
sure.
I think I heard that. Yeah.
a logical way you could put this in the system of the story would be they give off either an aroma or something that changes them to whatever you find personally attractive, and thus they're more like a shape-shifting changeling.
Yeah, so every species
that would make sense.
Thinks of the Asari as attractive, living
they-
like their own species.
They are the Ditto Pokemon of this world. It's
I mean,
just every time you look at them, they're whatever you want to be. It's like, I'll be whatever you want to be, kind of a thing. That's what they are. But I'm saying from a scientific, fantastical or sci-fi, I should say, science fiction, fantastical setting, you could say they give off an aroma or something that when you see them, you just see them as whatever you find desirable.
Yeah, but
It's like
that's the
something.
only part that I would say sort of pushes into the direction of.
But even if that was the case, that doesn't mean they're genderless.
No, even
you could still be gendered if that was the case.
They're still female because
they can't be female if they're genderless. That's my point.
Yeah, they're not. But that's
apparently
the
they
only
are, according
thing
to some
that.
people. So
Well, they're wrong.
Yeah.
I wish I could just say, well, they're wrong, and then that'd be that. That's Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way on a lot of things. But needless to say, it was a strange concept that I was like, how much mental gymnastics do you have to go through to be like genderless equals gendered bits? That doesn't make logical sense, no matter how I look at it. If they're all female and they're trying to breed with whoever for whatever reason to propagate their species, sure, whatever, nobody cares. But don't be like it's a they. I was like, but why would it be a they if it's a she? If it's a she, it's a her. If it's
so, by the way, who is saying this exactly?
People commenting about Mass Effect stuff.
Yeah, but is this they character? Is that in the original trilogy? Because I don't recall.
It was all because of the board game that had the picture and it said she they, and I said, well, at least
the board game
in there.
Okay,
and it was the blue chick. I don't know who she is. Again, I've never played a Mass Effect game, but I can identify some of the characters and be like, oh, that's the blue chick from Mass Effect, or that's is it Commander Shepard?
They would probably Commander Shepard is the main character.
Yeah, the human. He's a human.
Yeah.
Character.
So the main Asari is called Liara.
Yeah.
So it's probably that one in the board game, but I don't know for sure.
It's the one you always see in the blue woman in the promotional
Yeah,
I mean, they all look
is
the same, don't
probably
they? Yeah.
Liara. They do look all the
Hey,
same. Yes.
racist. That's racist.
I mean, as far as I can tell,
Well-
it's only one main character I see in all the promotional material. So I'm assuming it's one person, not a whole bunch of different ones rotating.
If
through.
it's in the promotional material, then it's almost certainly going to be Liara for the Asari.
It's probably her
Okay.
because it's the face of that race from a consumer's perspective.
Yeah.
But point being,
Just
it
like
was
how
weird.
you're always going to see Garrus as the Turian
Sure. Now, back to
and Rex, of
back
course.
to the Yotei thing. I hope it's good. I want it to be good. I would love to have more ghosts stuff, but they did make a good comment between, I think it was Red Bandana Gaming said, hey, if it's a ghost game, then you can make it kind of whatever you want from here to there. If it's a Ghost of game, it's got a different set of parameters, which I agree with, because I mean, one's like, it's like saying Super Mario Bros, Super Mario Yoshi, Super Mario, what, like it versus just Super Yoshi, Super Mario, Super Wario, whatever. Like they have different connotations depending upon how the wording is used. So the Ghost of Tsushima and going to the Ghost of Yotei and be the ghost of this next place they pick. I didn't think that the argument that, oh well, they might be doing
I would
a second one.
be interested in a Ghost of Ryukyu. That would be
The Ghost of Tokyo
nice.
in a modern era would be kind of funny too. But I mean, But if you think about it from the perspective of, if you have the Ghost of, and you're like, oh, we're gonna make a second one. Why would you do a random one in between that's further in the future and then go back in the future to have Jin Sakai back in it?
That is gonna be weird if they do that.
That wouldn't
Wait,
make
what?
any sense. Like, well, that's allegedly some people think that's what they're going to be doing. Like, Sucker Punch is going to come out with Ghost of Tsushima 2 because everybody wants Jin Sakai back, and it's like they're going to bring it back for like the second Mongolian invasion. It's like, oh, maybe you do that, but why would you not lead with that? Because that's what people are expecting. Close out his section. It's the same thing with Assassin's Creed. You close out the old stuff and move to something else in a different time period, but usually closer to the modern period from that point. It's a little weird when you go to Origins where it jumps way back and then comes back up again. It doesn't make sense in that regard. So,
but it does make sense in the sense that you want the ancient Greek and ancient Egyptian
time
themes.
period. Yeah, I mean, yes, that makes sense. But I'm saying, like, when you're, and I guess it did help that it wasn't Desmond. That probably did help a bit, because now they're like, we're jumping into other people's ancestries into these other lines. That would make more sense. I'll give them a pass for that. But it would make also more sense that as you're going down the line, if it was Desmond and then they jump back to Egypt, I'd be a little weirded out by that.
Mhm.
If it was Desmond. It's not Desmond, so it's not that bad. But I'd be more worried if they just start jumping around in time periods. Like when you release a game, you're like, all right, we're gonna start here and we're gonna go up. Imagine playing Civilization, starting out in the dark era, going to the modern era to go back to the medieval era. It'd be kind of weird.
No, but that's a different type of game, though.
I know, but I'm talking about like the immersion breaking.
No, but see, the
story continuation system.
Civilization is one game in which you progress through time. It's not having different games set in different time periods.
I'm not talking about one game, different time periods or whatever. I'm talking about the progress, logical progression. So when you're in the Dark Ages, or if you're in the Stone Age, you expect to go to the Bronze Age, then you expect to go to the Iron Age, you expect to go, like, you're progressing normally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't expect to go Stone Age, Bronze Age, Steel, and then go back to Iron.
Sure.
That would be kind of weird. Although
because
apparently the new Civ game is going to be, you pick a different civilization every so often.
The new Civ game, I don't like it.
I don't know how that's going to work. I'm not that particularly good at Civ. I'm better at games like Age of Empires or
that's fair.
Total War or something.
The whole every age you just randomly select. Well, it's not.
There
quite
are other
random.
games that do that in the 4X strategy system.
Yeah, but Humankind was also not very well received.
Yeah, that was not well received at all. I think it's too chaotic when they do that, but
it's the main game that does that same strategy.
But ultimately,
I think it loses the main identity of the whole Civilization game, where the idea is, can you build a civilization to stand the test of time? Oh no, you can't, because you switch to a different one.
Because your civilization changed.
Every age.
For me personally, I disagree with Blabs on the censorship thing. All right, just to close this section out before.
Sure. Yeah.
I disagree with Blabs because, and I do agree with one of the commenters put something in that both Flodzilla and Blabs jumped on, where Red Bandana Gaming and Stutter and Craig are like, no, I understand what the commenter's saying. It was right at the very end, which Squash, I don't know if you remember this or not, but he's basically saying the people who are allowing these concepts that are allowing this stuff, they're not gatekeeping very well, and they're allowing these things to progress, and you're not just like trying to keep these people out. Like if Eric Ishii goes into a game and everybody knows who Eric Ishii is, it's a death knell for a game. So if you just tell them to keep her out entirely before she gets there, it won't kill the game. You're not targeting the person as much as you are protecting the game. You're trying to protect a product that you are probably interested in. I don't know why you'd protect a product you're not interested in, but maybe you have reasons. But when you just give the whole, oh, it doesn't bother me, therefore nobody should do it, is kind of.
Why would you protect a product you're not interested in? Have you ever heard of a tourist?
Well, no, I'm not even talking that. I'm talking like, because you're a fan of the gaming industry, you want to protect all games from this kind of disease that's going around, so that way it doesn't eventually make it through to your games. It's like an ultimate gatekeeping as opposed to a short-sighted gatekeeping of just a property. That makes sense. Yeah. So I can see valid reasons that you want to protect the entire industry. I don't think you'd be as successful as the property. No, it's really not. With studios closing down, the only ones going to be opening are going to be new studios, and the new studios have a higher chance of being gatekept, so they don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah, but that's only for the hardcore games.
Maybe. But remember, you've got people like that worked on The Witcher and whatnot. Some of them went to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Warhorse Studios, which means that's really good for like Kingdom Come Deliverance is poaching a lot of people from City Project Red. That's good for Warhorse Studios because those are the good people that you want to keep because they're legends in their craft. They're veterans. Sure. They know what they're doing. They know their bits. But when it comes to newer stuff, you have new studios coming up with a bunch of people from Blizzard or a bunch of people from this other game that was successful that everybody liked. You got people from the old school Bethesda games like Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim. They're going off and making their own stuff. Those ones, as long as they play it right and they don't get political, will make bank because people like their products.
Yeah, fair.
But is it better to protect the entire industry and kind of push these people out of this industry? There's plenty of, like, Erika Ishii could easily go work on TV production and be a voice actor or whatever for any other thing. She's not like it's the end of her life. Like she can never work anywhere
but
anymore.
But it's no longer gatekeeping really, because they're already inside. It's
you can push them out of a gate. You can push them out of a gate.
After that,
but what you're doing is you're preventing more from coming in as you remove the intruders from your castle. You're closing the gate, preventing the flow. You're stemming the flow, and then you're removing the current invaders. That's what the idea is for keeping the whole industry and saying we don't want these people in because these people are damaging the entirety of the industry. They're not just saying mean things that we don't like. They're actively doing things that are hurting the marketing brand because they're trying to divide the fan bases of all these games. Then there are the tourists on the other side, because that's the industry workers. Then you have the tourist fans, the people who show up, say, I like this thing, but I don't have any particular reason. I'm entertained. They're just as bad as the people in the industry because they destroy things because they don't care. They don't matter if they break the vase in your house. It doesn't matter if they shatter a light bulb by throwing a ball around in your house. It's not their house. They're about to leave, but they were entertained. That's all they care about. So from that perspective, yes, let's keep the tourists out in terms of what can be said in the development, because here, if they're tourists, if you make it woke, they'll probably like it. If you don't make it woke, they'll probably like it because they're tourists. They don't have standards. So if you make it not woke or not based off of ideology, you can still have quote unquote woke things in it, like the option to be in a gay relationship or the option to be hideous, whatever, but you're not making everything hideous. If you give people their own options to do that kind of stuff, the tourists will like it. They'll eat it up because they don't know any better. They don't have standards. But everybody else won't be upset about it either. So it's a win-win percentage. The worst comes to worst, less than 10% of the entire industry in terms of the customers might be unhappy. Currently, it's at least 50, possibly up to 70% of the industry is unhappy. That's
Huge margin.
That's what's causing all these studios to close. Any studio that's like, I just realized 4 studios have closed this year because they've made flops. I've seen other studios that just lost hundreds of millions of dollars off of failed attempts. You would think they would pay attention to that, say, I'm here to make money, and that's not going to work. But there's always BlackRock, there's Blackstone, and all those other different DEI proponents. They're going to catch them when they fall. That's the nature of things. But I don't think that it's going to end well the way they want it to end. And the faster we push out the tourists and the faster we push out the invaders and we keep the gates closed, not from them accessing the games, but from developing the games. Like, let the tourists buy whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
But don't let the games they're buying be the games that are going to be divisive, that are going to be the games that are destroyed. Now, if they want to build a Kamala Harris voting simulator game, just like they have a Trump version, knock yourselves out, because that's the purpose of the game. But you don't go into a pre-established universe like Perfect Dark, Fable, Tomb Raider, etc., Dragon Age, and then change it to be a political messaging system, because that's not what they've ever been. It's just not. So just don't allow it to begin with. And we'll skip off of this to everything else, because I didn't put a lot of time on it. Although we did kind of cram a whole bunch of stuff into that, but I'm okay with that. Let's get a move on. All right, Sage, you're up. Final topic.
Okay.
Summarization of Fantasy Realms.
Sorry, what?
Summarization of Fantasy Realms. Sorry, just go ahead.
Yeah, so I watched a video at some point.
Hopefully more than one.
Yeah. And it was about why fantasy generally is sucks nowadays, right? So this video first, it does some explanation of where this come from, what's the origin in genre, etc. Mainly pointing towards the romanticism ideas that gave us all the shining knights in armor ideas, the chivalry stuff.
The chivalry that's not really chivalry.
Yeah. So that's the origin, essentially, of fantasy, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And there were, in this video, there were like 4 main parts of fantasy that you have to have in order to make it work, and that is world building, of course, needs to be that's the main purpose. You have to make a magical worlds that is not the same as ours, or a hidden part of our world that is magical in nature. That's
Harry Potter style.
Yeah, Harry Potter style, essentially. Language is important. So, for example, you need to not have modern language in it, but generally go for the Tolkienian or maybe Shakespearean type of language. It needs to have a very strong good versus evil type of setting. Not necessarily in that everything needs to be perfectly objective in that regard, but basically it's not the same as what else we have nowadays. And the generally logic is not operating on what we understand as scientific logic nowadays, but it's more like symbolism versus the more yeah, I'm not sure how to phrase it. And then you get sort of a divide in that you can lean more towards the mythological aspects, and that would be like fantasy. And what we have now is more contemporary stuff. You should think there of Star Wars. Maybe they don't have the fancy ancient language, but they do have the good morality, good versus evil stuff. And the logic there is much more scientific minded, let's say, versus the more fantasy type of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so Star Wars is a bit more towards the contemporary part, whereas Tolkien is more towards the mythological.
Contemporary is in it's more accessible because more things are
It's
familiar.
more modern.
Well, it's futuristic, so yes.
No, not in the sense of technology, but in the sense of having our modern thoughts perspectives in there. So
I would just like to point out Squash looks like he's about to drop a sick album.
okay.
I haven't been able to see him this whole fucking time. So
Well, I know.
So
I
for
don't know what's
example-
going on with you guys, but you guys have a problem. You need to fix it.
Mhm.
all I know is I look pretty on camera, and I can start jiggling my tits at any time if you need me to.
So basically, what I was saying
Only if they're pixelated and censored properly.
is that Lord of the Rings, for example,
I get to
would
be a
be
hentai character.
it's
You
it's
are a
more
detective.
mythological inclined. It has the whole epic nature of
well, it has a
stuff.
mythos. It's a grand epic tale.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whereas Star Wars has some of that too, but it lacks the fancy language. Let's say they talk like modern people. So that's more a contemporary thing. They don't talk like ancient, I don't know, medieval people.
Yeah.
But
Knoweth thereth Jonath Smitheth.
exactly. So Star Wars is less fantasy than Lord of the Rings, you could say, but it's still fantasy. And
Fiction, actually, but yeah.
Fiction, sure, yeah.
It's science fiction,
But
for a reason.
it's science fantasy, right? It's
science fiction. It's still sci-fi.
I would honestly give you the science fantasy title just because they have that mystic element to it.
Well, I would agree, except they call it sci-fi, not sci-fi.
You're a sci-fi.
Yeah. Whatever that means, but that's the world.
Oh no, you know what it means.
Whatever that means, it's a word that'll probably get you arrested over there.
Yeah, let's not say that. But the part that makes it fantasy is the fact that there is a magical world, right? So the Force is essentially magic.
The Force is weird.
It's weird,
gay,
yes.
Honestly,
I'm not an expert on how exactly it works, but it's essentially.
Part of me wishes that the Force wasn't a thing.
Right. If the Force wasn't a thing, then it would be science fiction.
Yeah.
Well, it's an energy. It's not a magic.
Well, it is a magic, though.
It's not. It's midichlorians
floating
in the air, and then you're basically manipulating it.
Avatar style.
Yeah, can we just ignore whatever the fuck George was trying to do with that one?
Can we ignore the creator of this entire series and how he's trying to do the series? Yeah, that works out.
Yeah, kind of.
Sure.
You know, if you want to put it that way, fuck you.
But also in the morality part, that's probably the most important one, according to the video.
But I'm saying if you're putting it into perspective, because the mystical aspect was supposed to be like we don't know how it operates, but then George introduced how it operates. So if it operates a particular way, he did. That's how midichlorians came into the picture with the sequel or the prequels.
Right, but do they really tell us how it operates?
There are a certain amount of midichlorians in this, and then somebody utilizes the energy of midichlorians the same way you would expect a waterbender to waterbend.
I can increase the amount of midichlorians in you if you'd like.
Okay. That's not, though.
Gay? In the purpose of the story, it's like there are things. I don't know if you've ever seen like they have like magnetic gloves or something, and you can utilize it to like rotate a rod around your hands, or a dice or a metal dice or something can roll across your fingers without touching your hand.
Sure.
It's that kind of energy manipulation is ultimately what it turns into.
Right.
Like you could
But
say a
that's also
force push
magic.
is a energy shock blast. Like it's basically taking it, softening the actual energy
but see-
manipulation aspect.
Any magic that is not like a weird, let's say, it can be explained in such a way.
Because that is how that works, but okay.
No, but see, telekinesis is magic, right?
I don't know, is it?
Well, generally,
explain
yes.
it?
How do you explain things that are moving?
No,
Yeah.
how do you explain telekinesis in a scientific way?
That would depend on how you were to build that world in that regard.
Right.
in that universe.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
you can
no.
explain
But
But
every
that's what I'm
type
saying.
of magic
But that's what I'm. Well, you can't explain
in a
every type of magic.
semi-scientific way.
I would say that the one power would be very difficult to use scientific means to explain.
Very difficult, but not impossible.
Virtually impossible, because the way it's set up isn't scientific in any shape or form. It's not an energy.
Except
It's not anything.
it could be.
It's like you seeing imaginary things that exist in a different plane of existence. Can't really scientifically prove that unless you can prove God's existence. Good luck with that. So, I mean, you kind of write yourself into a corner in that kind of stuff. But the thing is that in that world, the world building gave us the source of the one power, and thus
Sure.
we didn't have to scientifically figure it out. But no one's arguing it's science fiction, though there are science fiction elements to it, because they took a magical world and pulled it into eventually a sci-fi realm that eventually broke apart and went back to the fantasy realm again. But it was still fantasy the entire time. It was just the advancements of technology ended up going to a sci-fi type world. But it was more than just science fiction. It was just like they had the technologies to do like little floating hover cars and stuff like that at the time in the Age of Legends. And then all of a sudden, poof, now they're back to horse and buggy kind of a thing.
Sure.
So the fantasy aspect never left. It's just they introduced a sci-fi setting,
The magic
into a fantasy
aspects never left.
Well, any of the fantasy stuff.
True, but we were talking specifically about the way magic works, right?
No, we were talking about how to explain magic in systems and keep it like be able to scientifically explain it in every situation.
But you can do that.
Not all systems can do that. Well, no, because there are some things you can't explain by science.
Okay.
Because science requires you to observe and to repeat.
Any, let's say, magical effect, right, can be given a
Because I think
scientific
you're leaning more towards
explanation.
like magitech, whereas like magic in the science.
No. This is about world building. If I make a magic effect, right, I can explain it as being purely a magical thing, or I can explain it in a pseudo-scientific way. It's still magic.
I mean, if I can explain it, like energy manipulation, I would say it ceases to be magic, because magic is typically that which we can't explain.
You can explain it as energy manipulation, sure, but someone else might say this is just fire magic.
Well, somebody else saying is different than that's how the lore explains
it's
it.
about exactly. It's about how do you explain it in the world building.
I know, but in Star Wars,
magic
it's explained in the prequels as a midichlorian. It's a literal.
Yeah, but it's still magic.
But it's not.
Because it's not something we can do in the real world.
Well,
yeah,
it's fantastical. I wouldn't say it's magic.
Yeah, that's magical.
Not necessarily.
Of course it is.
You can have a centaur in a setting and there be no magic in the setting.
Yeah, because the centaur isn't doing magical effects. It's just a...
Yes, it's called fantastical. It's not magical.
No.
The
centaur is not magical. It is fantastical because it is just a creature.
but it's not something
The
that
magical
exists in
is
our world.
It doesn't have to.
You just said it had to. Something that doesn't exist in our world.
No, see, it's
You
fantastical.
literally just said it.
The centaur is fantastical because it's a fantasy creature that is not a real creature in our world. But magical is about effects that you can't do in the real world.
I could agree to some extent.
So, for example, if I have this glass here and I use magic to make it float or whatever, that's
You're just
magical
energy manipulation.
Effect. Yeah, it's energy manipulation, sure, but it's magical because I can't do it.
Well, it's not magical if it's energy manipulation, because energy manipulation exists.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it does. Science fairs have them all the time.
Right. How do you float this thing?
It's the same thing if you take a copper tubing and stick magnets in it, they spin for a long time. That's energy manipulation. That's not something I can do, but it can happen. So it's energy manipulation. If you're using something that we can relate to, aka midichlorians being a cell or a molecular construction of some sort, being in the bloodstream or in the body, or however he announced it originally, I don't remember the specifics because it's been a while since I've chatted or talk about it. But in that situation, it's not a mystery. We know.
But see,
in the original trilogy, we didn't know, and it was
mystery
magical.
for it to be magical.
Well, we call things magic when we can't explain them.
Yeah, we also call things magical if we can explain them.
If there's a source that's magic,
yes,
like a thing, like
say
the one power,
midichlorians.
But they're not magical midichlorians. They're just midichlorians.
Why are they not magical?
Because he described this is what this is. The access to the force is through midichlorians.
Right.
And we know that the force is an energy.
Why
if it's an energy, it's something that you can actually measure.
Not magic, but the one source in the Wheel of Time is
power.
Yeah, whatever the source.
Because the one power is not in the same plane of existence.
It's the source of the one power, right? That is suddenly not enough to explain it. Why?
We don't have explanations for the one power. We just know side E and side R come from this singular source.
Yeah,
that's it.
And we know the force comes from midichlorians. That's it.
But the thing is midichlorians don't exist on a separate plane. They exist in the same plane.
Why do you think the true source?
Because the one power is a source coming from the creator.
Yeah. Is the
creator is not in the technically no. He kind of created the world as like a snow globe and kind of walked away for a portion of time.
Okay, sure. Is the force that's keeping the world alive not part of the world?
We don't know how the force was created. It's a mystery.
Right. And we don't know how midichlorians are created. It's a mystery.
We don't know how they're created, but we know that they exist, and we know that those who
we know
the
that
force
the true source
utilize them. But we know that midichlorians is an energy.
There is no difference.
There is. There is.
There is not.
There is.
There is not.
There is. The only way for the one power to tell how strong you are is by doing tests to see how strong you are. Midichlorians, they can test your midichlorians, say you have a ridiculous amount of midichlorians. Okay, I'm not saying it's a good way to do it. I'm saying that's how they
not different in power levels, because you don't give a specific number.
Power levels of what?
A power level versus amount of high midichlorians versus a high amount of power. It's the same thing.
Powers in what though? Like you're talking about Hero
like you were saying,
one power. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Force of one power. Midichlorians is midichlorians in
the effects it makes.
The force of one power are totally different.
Yeah, because of the different effects.
Because the limitations of the one
not
power
because of their source
is much different. Well, the sources is different because
the sources
as far as
different things.
As far as Star Wars is concerned, and I have yet to see anything come from either George or anyone or anything in the actual material, whether it be books, games, or anything, to suggest where the source comes from. It's just like Yoda has this famous quote in the trilogy, it's everywhere around us, blah, blah, blah. We didn't know what it was because it was very
Wait a minute, that
mystical,
sounds a lot like the true source.
except it's not the same because it's literally around them as opposed to being okay. For
Is
example,
it?
no, the Forsaken have a link from them to the Dark One that can be
Sure.
cut, right? Just like you can
Your
cut
point
off
being?
access, you can cut off access. It's not just they're absorbing the Dark One's energy and have a connection to him. It's something that can be severed from them.
Yeah.
In order to do that, it's like a tether wherever they're walking, going to the Dark One from everywhere.
Sure.
But it's not actually there. Like if you walk behind them and cut with a sword, you're not cutting anything.
Yeah.
But with the Force,
you're saying-
you can.
Can you cut the
What do you
Force
mean,
with a
but-
sword?
I'm not saying you
aren't
can't,
there
you
lines
can't
where
cut people off from the Force unless they die, as far as I'm aware.
no,
because
I'm pretty
it's-
sure because
Right,
people
but
can lose the connection.
you're
with
missing
Force,
the
though.
entire point. You're looking at the specific details of how the Force work versus how the one power works.
Typically, when you look at something, you look at the details, not the generalizations. of it.
You're looking at irrelevant specifics to the details of the magic, right?
Irrelevant.
They are magical systems that allow you to interact with the world in a way that is not the normal way to interact with the world. That is what magic is. You can explain it in your world building as, okay, this is because of some magical technology stuff, or maybe it's just weird or whatever, right?
They're all weird technically, but yeah.
It's all still magic, regardless.
I would say you would categorize it from a storytelling or world building system as magic, but I would not say that
yeah,
just
because
because
that's
it's,
what it is.
but it's not inherently.
Of course it is.
Well, no. If there's an in-universe explanation for it, it's not a magic. Now, an in-universe situation in terms of like where the
It
one
is a
power
magic
doesn't have.
system.
Well, where does the one power come from? Does it come from the mind? Does it come
doesn't
from the
matter.
spirit? Does it come from the body? What is it?
It's magic
How are you connected to it?
through magical connection stuff.
Magical connection stuff. So, okay,
yes, that's a great explanation of what's going on with it.
Yeah.
basically. So, if you have a connection
It doesn't
to the
matter
thing-
how you're connected to it. All that
Well,
matters
it
is
is.
that
It's
it
like
is
in
magic.
the real world. Imagine if you have a real world setting, whether it be like an anime setting. I'll use an anime as a possibility. Like, let's say, because we have two anime guys here. Let's imagine a world where it's a normal modern day world, but you can affect things around you, like Wi-Fi connection, like over airwaves, or a Bluetooth type connection, and you can do things with that. But the entire world building is on you can do this stuff. And it seems magical, but it's just you have a Bluetooth like embedded system in you that just uses electromagnetic waves to do all this type of stuff. You
Yeah.
cannot do that stuff in real life. So it's fantastical, but it's all in real world explanations as to how you can shove something up to 30 feet because Bluetooth has limited range. And, all these types of things happen. But it's purely explained by science. The only fantastical element is how you gain the ability, which anime has some crazy out there
Right.
reasons of how things
And
happen.
that is the only thing that's important for it to be magical.
But it's not magic.
But all you're saying is George says it's this thing that he thinks.
The creator of the concept
So-
that it's this
so,
thing. That's all it is.
Can I chime in here really
yeah.
quick?
Just because the creator says it doesn't mean everyone's gonna agree. Everyone saw it better as just being a magical power.
I
agree.
I agree.
That would be better.
Midichlorians is a horrible idea, but now that we have it, we can't
Yeah.
change the fact the cat came out of the bag. Like this is not I do not override the author because the author says the thing. However, if it's not in canon and he says it, then I can ignore it because it's not in the canon. It's in the canon at this point. I can't change that. You can't change that. Nobody can change that. Crimson, you wanted to say something?
So is effectively what you're saying here to try and like sum this up.
Sum the summary up.
No, that if it's just so I can understand here, that if it's explained, it's not magic because magic is an unexplained phenomenon. Is that effectively what's being said here?
That's essentially the general fantastical explanation of magic. If you can, like, we don't call magic in the Wheel of Time magic. We call it the one power because we know what it is. They don't call it magic in Star Wars.
Yeah,
They
but
call
that
it the
doesn't
Force.
mean it's not magic.
It's magical, like and necessary to real life.
Magic.
But we can explain it. So they don't even that magic is never used once. Sorcery is never used once because there's a unique term used for it, despite it being almost identical to sorcery, wizardry,
So
whatever it might be.
sorcery is a specific term for a type of magic. Yes, but magic itself
I was saying wizardry, sorcery,
is the
any
general category of
I
all.
know. I'm saying that in those situations, I'm taking the broad stroke of what is typical fantasy magic and the practitioners of it, because a sorcerer is a practitioner of sorcery, etc., etc., etc. So a user of the one power is an Aes Sedai if they're formerly trained by the group conglomerate that's called Aes Sedai. If they're not, they're called Wilders or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the usage of it, typically when you refer to magic, like go in the real world, go to a tribe that's lost and you fly a drone nearby them, they'll say it's magic because they don't know what it is. They can't explain it because they don't know what it is. We call it an unidentified object, not an alien ship, because it's unidentified flying object. UFO.
No, it is an alien ship, though.
Is it though? Exactly. We don't
Depends on
know.
who you ask. I know a guy who runs a channel all about that stuff.
Crazy people, I tell you, crazy. But anyway, the point being is that when you have something that you can't explain, magic would be the term to be like, I don't know, but it's a force of some type of energy. It's a force of something that we can't explain is the typical term.
Right.
Now, there is a broad category.
This is in real world terminology, right?
What do you mean?
So this is what you would use magic for in the real world.
Well, I'm saying in like the fantasy and sci-fi worlds, magic is like a broader definition.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's how the universe interacts with it. If the universe interacts with it, it's usually magic as in we don't know. Or it has a specific thing because they do know, and that specific thing behaves abnormally to how the regular world would work.
Yeah.
But there's usually terms
like
they
the
use
Force
for it.
And the one power.
Abnormalities being a thing in different universe settings, or
but magic,
a drug that gives you
magic
advanced powers, a quirk,
specific things within the world, but effects. Can we agree on that?
It's a thing that creates effects. The one power is a thing that creates effects through weaves.
Yeah, but the effects are the magical parts.
Yes, but I'm saying is that you don't explain it in the world's universe as magic.
Yeah, sure.
Now, if you're not world building, but
you give it a specific explanation.
If you are not world building, like a lot of animes don't do the world building, and they just say it's a magic user, that they're not building a world to explain magic. There is no explanation.
They often have an explanation for the magic as well. Well, maybe not all of them. Maybe not the majority, but all the ones
we went from they totally do. Well, maybe not all those. Actually, very rarely.
All of the good ones, right? They do.
All the good ones. Now we're throwing in subjectivism into this. No, what I'm saying is that when they don't do it for the world building, it's a blank slate. They're just like, I have swordsmen who do swords techniques. I got spearmen who do spearmen technique, or archer technique, and I have these casters that use magical techniques.
Yeah,
that's the limit of their world building. Then yes, you typically call it magic because there's no world building really involved with it. It's just here's a thing that could do amazing, crazy things with some randomized limitations on it. That's not world building. That's the lack of world building. That's more like the poor man's world building, if you will.
What is your point?
The point is that when you have something like the one power or like the Force, they're explained, they're fleshed out, there is actual reasons for the way they behave and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tap into something like the Force, now the Force does not come from an entity, as far as I'm aware.
Does it matter?
Well, it does for world building purposes. The Force is
But
much.
does it for the categorization?
What do you mean? For the categorization, you mean between world building and not world building?
No. For calling it magic or not.
I don't fully understand what you mean.
The Force is a magical effect, right? You can use it to do magical stuff.
Well, the things it lets you do can be done by the things. You can use a robot to pick up heavy objects. You can use the Force to pick up heavy objects. You can use a blast of air from a pressurized gun to push things away. Like, they're not insanely like impossible things to do in any other shape or form. They can do the same things. Shielding blocks blaster shots. Like, you can throw people, you can pull people with a lot of things. Grappling hooks will grab people. Air pressurized stuff can push you. They're not. It's not beyond the realm of imagination that a normal
you
person
can't
could
do
this.
it without those tools normally.
Hold up, but tell me this one thing: how did the Force make Anakin?
That's the thing.
It was a rebound from Palpatine and
Pelagius.
Pelagius fucking with the Force. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And I only know this
but how
because
did
my
that happen?
co-host for my Saturday show is a huge fucking Star Wars nerd.
Yeah, but like, how did that happen? Did the Force do it through science or magic?
The Force did it through the Force, but the Force is technically
But
natural.
what is the Force?
Well,
but it's magic.
The Force is like a Mother Nature type being, but it's not a being. That's the weird part. I don't know how to describe
Exactly,
it
because he didn't explain it that well.
It was never well. That's the thing, is his world building was extended to that of movie universe. He did not write the books. He did not direct the books.
Mhm.
The books were written separately from him with his blessing.
So we don't understand it.
He didn't even like the books, from what I understand.
So according to your definition,
I mean, if
that
he
means
okayed them,
magic.
that's his fault. But the problem is that the Force is an energy, like what we'd expect all types of energy to be in the universe, which means it's a type of energy. We don't know its source. Like, we get energy sourced from the sun to a certain extent. We get other energies from natural parts of the earth, whether it be food, nutrients, etc. There's lots of energies we get. It's just like that, but how we've branded Mother Nature to explain all the natural things that happen that we can't potentially explain. Like, why do we get the tsunami at this particular time, at this particular way, when it didn't seem like all the normal tsunami things that you would need, which is like tides and tectonic rifts hitting and everything like that. Platonic rifts.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Friendships breaking apart in Mother Nature's family. But things like that happening, that would be the normal route. Well, if you have one come out of nowhere that didn't have those following, you say, oh, it's just Mother Nature. You explain it away saying Mother Nature, kind of like we explain things away with it's just the Force in that regard. I can't say it's the perfect analogy. That's the only thing I can relate to, is it's like a Mother Nature of the universe. Right. We don't know where it sources from. We just know it comes from life. Well, life is everywhere except the void, and in the void they can still do it. I don't understand that, but it doesn't make sense.
It's magic.
That's not even how that works when it says it comes from life. If you have life, then you have to have life to get it, regardless of magic or not properties. That's how consistency works. Magic typically has consistencies. You can do certain things with it, and you can't do certain things with it. The one power cannot raise the dead. Doesn't matter how much power you put into it. It does not have the property.
Have you read any like ancient folklore stuff?
I know what people claim.
Consistent.
What claims happened and what actually happened are two different things, good sir. Something magical or fantastical could have happened, but not necessarily the way they explain
is not inherently consistent.
You're not.
In fact, most often it is not consistent at all.
Well, it is if you have proper world building, sure.
Depends on how you define proper.
Okay, in Tolkien's Legendarium, what is the inconsistency of magic?
Do you know how it works?
Yes.
How?
Eru.
Okay, so he just
It's like traps.
inconsistently can do different things whenever he feels
Well,
like it, and sometimes he does.
Eru
Sometimes he
has
doesn't.
the power to do things. The
Okay.
Valar have a sub power to do things,
Sure.
and then elves have a kind of power at some points to do certain
So
things.
it's not magic then.
Well, it is magic.
No, but you know how it
Oh my
works.
goodness.
I don't know how every aspect of it works. I know the
Right,
forcing
because
of it.
it doesn't matter. It's all
I know the
magic.
same source of the one power. I would consider it magical to be able to create a boulder out of air and drop it on someone's head that they can't see and that crushes them. That's not something you could do even through science.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I
You
hear
can
him
create-
typing. He's gonna look this up.
You can't look it up. There's no stats or anything for that. But I'm saying, like, there are certain things you can and can't do with a lot of things. I like how Wheel of Time does it because there's limitations like exhaustion, mental
Right.
type things,
But that doesn't matter. That's
physical weight.
details.
Well, yes, but I'm saying if it was just quote unquote just magic, like the
But we're not
low,
yet.
if it was low tier magic world building, you
Okay,
wouldn't
so let's
have
call it
limitations.
high tier magic world building.
That's what I'm saying. It is high
It's
tier.
still magic.
It's magic in a book category or a movie thing category. Yes. They
Yeah.
quantify it for simplistic people to
That's the
understand that it's
entire
not
point.
part of the actual world. It's something outside of the actual world. But I'm saying in Star Wars, it's not outside of the actual world. It's part of the actual world. Any more than any, you can't pull out a single molecule type out of our world and say it's magic. It's a molecule. That's what the Force is. The Force is a molecule. How it operates is freaking wonky. I can't explain all the details about it, but everything that it does is more or less natural. It just has to require other things for it to happen that way. Because as far as I'm aware, the Force can't raise the dead.
So
I think there are some other
Wait
like
until the new sequels.
dark
yeah,
Witcher.
exactly.
Yeah, I don't. That's not canon. But there are allegedly some dark wizard or dark witch type stuff that they can do with whatever their face witches can like raise the dead or
Yeah.
something like that.
The Night
I
Sisters.
don't. The Night Sisters. I don't know if that's a different like actual magic involved or if that's the Force involved with other magic. I don't know how their system works, but as far as I'm aware, the Jedi can't be like, oh man, we lost a Jedi. Let me just resurrect him. Like they don't do that. But the thing is in some things, like in the Wheel of Time, there's a soul factor. Star Wars doesn't have a soul factor that I'm aware of. So there's
Yeah,
different.
that's because we don't really know anything about how that works in Star Wars.
Well, we would if they fleshed it out. It's not that
Yeah,
fleshed
but it
out, but it
doesn't
is.
matter.
It's fleshed out enough for there to be more than nothing, but it's less than ideal. That's the problem.
I don't think that's a problem.
Well, I mean, it is when you want to be able to explain it in conversations
Yeah,
like
but
this.
you don't have to explain it.
Well, you don't have to, but if you're having a conversation on the Force, then you kind of have to.
Yeah, but you don't need to have a conversation on the Force.
Then why are we having this conversation, Sage?
Because you
That's
are
what I thought,
incapable
Sage!
of understanding that the Force is just a magic system.
Look, it was a magic system until George tried to explain it as something else.
I could agree with that.
That's how it was. That's
It
how
would have been because it was a more of a mysticism thing, but it kind of moved away from the mysticism thing when it came into like, oh, here's a scientific explanation for it. I could agree with that. Can you, Sage? Can you?
No.
Of course,
Oh
you're
my
being
goodness.
difficult
So
for the
we'll
baby.
just leave it at that.
Those Europeans being difficult for the sake of being difficult. The commies sending him notes saying, you have to say this.
don't be
Anyway,
like that.
continue with your summarization.
Yeah, I mean that's basically it.
Okay, so it was saying the old stuff versus the new stuff, right?
Now, so you need magical world building
Okay.
for fantasy.
You
You
do.
need
You
yeah,
could have fantasy without magic, technically, but yeah,
but
okay.
it's not really fantasy though, is it?
But it is.
Yeah.
It can literally be fantasy without having magic. That's yeah. It's called world
Okay,
building.
sure. So
You can have elves that don't have access to magic. You can have centaurs in a setting
feel
that
more fantasy.
Well, yeah.
A good versus evil morality, and sort of not symbolic.
They're talking. Are they
versus
talking like trope like,
psychology.
or are they talking like content type?
What do you mean content versus trope?
So trope being like, oh, we have the good versus evil struggle that fits into the fantasy realm, or are they talking like?
No, it's about morality, right? You need to have an absolute good to strive for the main characters.
So you're saying that you can't have fantasy without having an ultimate good and an ultimate evil? Because I would not agree with that.
Not ultimate, but you need to have a good side and an evil side, and the good guys need to strive for the ideal good.
So you couldn't have like a world of neutrals doing neutral things for neutral reasons?
It wouldn't be a fantasy type story.
But what if in the world had
isn't there a term
centaurs
true
and
fantasy?
unicorns and dragons in it? Wouldn't that be fantasy?
Maybe.
Oh,
right? You don't need all of them. You'd need to
Right.
have a
You
majority.
just need one thing that's outside of reality that makes it
Hey,
fantastical.
I'm just describing the video.
I
here,
know,
okay?
but I'm saying I disagree because I don't think that's a
Right.
very good argument.
Then why don't you just go watch the video?
I will probably at some point if I have time. But my point is that I don't agree with their like you have to have this to fit this. It's like no, you need very little to make it fantasy or sci-fi. Like when I go in, like there's the sci-fi fantasy, like it's overarching described as fantasy because we can't actually travel in space to warp speed or something. Sure, it's fantasy in that regard as if it's made up. But so fiction also covers that. So why call it fantasy when fantasy is a different type of genre typically? It's just an overarching concept of it. But when you're actually looking at it from the perspective of, what makes sci-fi, what makes fantasy, they might as well be interchanged and just say future fantasy versus past fantasy. But we noticeably have an entire section of the library called sci-fi or science fiction, and we have another section called fantasy. Why are the books not in the same places in each of the categories? Because they're categorically different for some reason. Now,
Yes,
there
sure.
is a series by L.E. Modoset that drove me insane because they had spaceships that crash on a fantasy land. They came out, they had blasters for a little bit, but eventually their blasters ran out of power. So they like their power cells or whatever died. And then they had to switch to like swords and stuff. And then there was magic introduced. And it was just kind of like you're cramming science fiction and fantasy into the same thing. I am lost at what's going on. Why can't you just use natural stuff to make a power cell? Because that's where power cells come from, natural stuff. Why don't you use robots that are on your ship to put them together and like, oh, okay, we have a manufacturing process now. They create power cells. We have more power cells. We have an infinite reactor, whatever the case might be. I can't explain the author's intent because I couldn't keep tracking with what he was putting out. But that's
so
where
maybe
sci-fi
there are
and fantasy.
no guys on the ship that know how to build any of that.
Well, there's only like 2 or 3 survivors of that entire ship.
Okay, so problem solved.
But it's not a problem solved if you have a robot. That's why they're
Is the robot sentient?
The robot doesn't need to be sentient. You're in an advanced civilization that can fly spaceships at warp speed. I think their robots are capable of doing some basic AI understandings.
Well, what if they're not?
That's a really horrible setting.
Is it?
Yes, the world building would be pretty awful.
Wow.
Yeah.
What if there's a reason they don't let them become sentient or whatever?
Yeah.
You don't need it to be sentient per se to have an AI brain capacity larger than that of a walnut.
Right. What if this particular robot just didn't happen?
And typically in those stories, they put limiters on them. They don't not let them become intelligent.
No, I'm
Okay,
racist
sure.
to robots. Fuck them. They're not allowed to become intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The robot
which is scary.
inherently is more intelligent than human because it can
Basically what?
process things faster than we can, and it can also do basic skills.
Is
if you give it
purely about processing power?
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. That's all that's going through my mind right now.
Yeah.
Neither does your argument. But no, if you give a robot like the ability to understand commands, it can do them faster, and depending on how it's built, which if you're in a massively like futuristic sci-fi era,
Right.
they didn't make them stupid and retarded like we have
But is
now.
that intelligence?
intelligence, if it has a logic-based system, that's all you need. Being able to solve problems at the speed of light compared to a human, which can't do that.
And being able to solve specific problems.
Well, if you give them all equal data,
and only those,
and they have
specific
logic,
problems.
humanity and aliens would presumably have a logic basis because everything has a logic basis for it to understand basic speech, patterns, body behavior, puzzles, and anything whatsoever. Everyone has to have a logic thing. Like logic is built in.
Right, sure.
So if you
Does
give a
that
robot
mean
a
the
logic
robots
module,
are
because-
equally advanced as, say, humans?
if you're giving the logic module and the exact same data, the robot will beat the human every single time.
Yeah. That's why I want robots to get smarter.
I want robots to get smart so they can do
He
my
wants
laundry.
his sex dolls to talk back at him.
Hey, Japan's got that for you, man. They got you covered. But but
Well,
in
the
terms
thing
of
is,
like,
Japan won't be around for much longer, so
If they keep on doing that.
well, I guess I know where we're taking over.
Hmm.
Keep Japan. But no,
Just don't bring any crazy people.
sushi's back on the menu, boys.
looks like sushi's back on the menu, boys.
Whenever the Japanese government mandates impregnating.
Oh no, that
Oh,
won't happen.
geez.
The UN will step in for that one. They won't let them do that.
Cut off.
They don't have a right to
Like-
step in, but they'll step in anyway because they stick their toes where they're not supposed to. Anyway, the point being is that robots of a futuristic universe would be more intelligent than any natural species
Sure,
inherently.
but
If you give them the
what
means,
if this particular robot doesn't have the blueprints for a nuclear reactor so that you can make batteries or something?
an intelligent species that creates intelligent robots, or even slightly basic level robots, they would put pretty much everything compacted in them. Like C-3PO can speak how many languages? A couple million?
I don't fucking know.
It's a couple million
Million something?
languages because there's a couple.
million days.
It's a
Yeah,
every
sure.
possible language that has ever been
He speaks
recorded
languages.
has been added into it. There is
However-
no sentient species in the Star Wars universe
However-
that can do that. They wouldn't need the droids
However-
if they could.
C-3PO can't do any engineering.
Because they did not upload that data.
Yeah.
If you're in a futuristic world,
Well, if they
you would
have
probably
A
upload all that stuff.
C-3PO on their spaceship that crashed instead of an R2-D2.
If he has a logical system, he could technically process variables in which they could come to that conclusion. C-3PO, if I recall correctly, and I could be wrong, it's been a long time since I've actually done the deep dive on Star Wars stuff, besides the Force stuff we talked about like last year, or maybe it was earlier this year. I don't remember when we did that last. But if they do what I thought they did, they put a language limiter on him. So basically, all he can do is languages. They limited him specifically that way. Technically, a human on that ship that has that robot could take that limiter off of him, and he could technically use that logic basis to calculate things like
I
chemistry
don't think
levels and
that's the
stuff.
thing.
What's the thing?
That he was limited to only doing languages.
Well, he's a protocol droid, and they're effectively just translators. That's what they're designed
Yeah.
to be.
They're
their
designed
model.
specifically to be that way. But if
Mhm.
you change so if you change the programming, essentially,
You need to first have someone capable of changing the programming of your local protocol droid.
sure. But you're assuming that they have that not available anywhere in
There
the
were
tech.
only 2 survivors, right, in your example?
Well, for example, in Halo, the entire ship has an entire AI throughout the entire thing. It's not going to be a language exclusive. It has to deal with battlements. It
Right,
has to
but
deal
because
with
Halo
fields.
has it doesn't mean that
No,
Star
no.
Wars also has it.
I'm talking about the basic fantasy in the future, or not fantasy future, futuristic sci-fi civilization.
Yeah,
They're
it
not gonna
sounds
have-
like you're just annoyed that this
That you're
particular
throwing out
science
random
fiction-
thingies that
No,
probably don't exist in
that
the
this
world.
particular science fiction setting didn't have super intelligent robots that could solve all the problems.
I don't think he did robots very well, but it's also from like the 70s or 80s, or maybe the 90s. I don't know, but it's not like a super advanced book. And it's not exactly a topic that, I mean, what old sci-fi series has like ridiculously high-tech stuff with
Probably none.
with explanations on how they function? Probably not a whole lot. Probably close to none. But that doesn't mean that now we can't, since we understand, we have more engineers that you could talk to and say, how would this logically happen in a futuristic hypothetical scenario? And they could break down like, well, this part, and this part could go together, and you could make this particular thing. Like even just the basic level understanding of how AI chatbots or AI art or anything like that, how they constitute intelligence, could potentially just make that happen. Like I'd love to make an AI logic system where basically I create a system that's based solely off of logic. At bare minimum, there's nothing there except the logic bit, the logic module, and then basically just feed it basic information. 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4. Basically explain the math system to it. It learns mathematics really, really fast because obviously there's limitations to math. It adds up a specific way. Okay, then you teach it logical progression. Teach it those kind of things. You can teach.
I'm sorry, what?
I heard naked sex.
That was my sister.
He's talking about naked
Wait,
sex.
why is your sister talking to you about sex?
Because I got to near a tunnel where this naked dude is in front of my character.
Gay.
So you like big dicks, got it.
Big black dick.
Has none. He does not have
I'll
one.
be sure to tell Ivan that later.
No,
Yeah, please don't.
you will not tell. If you tell him that, oh, I swear, bro.
I swear, I'll swear at you. But
You swear what?
I'll tell him what you be posting. He knows already, so he already knows.
What do you mean? Of course he knows. Like they fucking saw my
never
channel
mind.
on stream.
You know what? I'll just defend myself. I'll defend myself as I can.
Careful, those cookies
fair.
have
Best of luck.
poop pieces in them. It's like Beardo's favorite.
So like what are you gonna call like every fucking Mexican contractor in my area and tell them all to gang up on me?
That's censorship.
Yeah.
He's pro censorship.
Well, I'm
You
just
heard
gonna
it
call
first.
all his cousins up here in Illinois and be like, "Hey, I need you to jump some guy for me."
Mhm.
He said I like big black dicks. I need you to go jump him. He can't be allowed to live. But no, like you could possibly take a logic based AI and then basically teach it language. You could teach it mathematics. You could teach it philosophy. All these things that are legit. Like if you just teach them the things that aren't like a side, like leftist, rightist, whatever. It's just literally things that we know that are facts, like how you break down what a stone is and all the bioengineering aspects of it from a naturalist perspective, and then just go throughout things and say, okay, this is how this works, this is how this works, this is how this works. Give them like the DNA or the human genome or something and let them just work on it. Obviously take like a supercomputer to do that because it's so freaking big and has so much stuff to do run through because it's just basically a library of information and data. But if you had a big enough supercomputer or something, you could potentially go through that in 100 years or something, and maybe you could figure out something on the molecular level. I don't know, but you can teach it basic things, and it can go from that and take other information and say, that's not true because of X, Y, and Z. This is true because of X, Y, and Z. This is possible. This is not possible. It could do the scientific method for you and just kind of, I did this 180 times and 176 of them, it did this. And thus that is probably the more logical reason for this to do blah, blah, blah. Like that's stuff that can happen if somebody does it. I don't see anybody doing it. That's a different story. But in the fantasy realm, I think there's a difference between the old fantasy sci-fi and the new fantasy sci-fi. I think we can all agree on that. Don't all agree at once.
What?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Can we agree that old sci-fi and fantasy is not the same as new sci-fi and fantasy?
Sure.
Oh yeah.
For a
much more
multitude of
fan fiction
reasons,
filmed
yes.
today.
Now everybody talks all at once.
Yes.
It's like, hey guys, I'm waiting, and then all of a sudden, okay.
But
So
I would say the big problem is it's much more fan fiction filled.
well,
You know,
there's no new ideas.
yeah.
They just wanted to co-op something else. That's literally the only thing I can think of. So the Acolyte, Rings of Power, Wheel of Time versus the Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, whatever this other thing is on the thumbnail. I don't know what that is. It's just some lady throwing around a wand staff thingy. The actual
I
thumbnail
wish
for
I
the video.
could see.
I'll take a quick look.
It's on Discord, so I'm just looking at the image, but I don't know
I'm
what
on
series
my
it's
phone.
from, but whatever it is, it's
Yeah,
not
no
something-
idea. That's
it's not something I'm familiar with, but apparently it's old fantasy sci-fi world. Excuse me. As opposed to what is created now. So no, Amazon Wheel of Time, Amazon Rings of Power, Disney Acolyte. They're usually all abominations of something else.
Sounds about
could
right.
that be Final Fantasy X?
I never played a Final Fantasy game, so I couldn't tell you.
I wouldn't be able to say anything about it either. So
Yeah,
No,
I got
never
no
mind
idea. It's fantasy, but I don't think it's Final Fantasy.
Maybe.
the Final Fantasy.
16 games later.
17 billion games later.
It's like we're like operating on the same two brain cells. I like it.
Hey, it's only one. Same wavelength.
Our,
But no.
our two brain cells are quantumly entangled.
No, we just share the same brain cell. It's on the same wavelength because there's only one wavelength as well.
Fair enough.
It's like walkie-talkie brain cell power. But yeah, so I mean, what did you take away from the video overall, Sage?
Well, that it, in my opinion, gave a really good explanation of why the modern fantasy is kind of shit.
Which was
that they stray away from all the things that are core to the old fantasy,
which are
which is the more mythological approach rather than the
now when you say
more
mythological, do you mean like that just whatever happened in the historical world building aspect?
no
Or are you talking
writing stories in the same way, the mythological stories of ancient Greece, etc., would work.
so you mean the style of writing?
The style, yes. And the modern stuff is all just sort of modern feelings based, I don't know, writing,
You just don't understand how I feel.
that sort of thing. Stuff like I see your struggles, etc. That stuff. The modern language, it's just, it goes away from the timeless mythological symbolism into contemporary psychology stuff, essentially.
So it's more like I see London, I see France, I see you don't understand. Kind of a thing.
I was kind of thinking of that.
Maybe.
I thought that was supposed to be underpants.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It is, but I changed it to understand because they don't understand how to write. Yes, my point.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean they do, but
I get it.
they do understand.
There's one
how
brain cell finally caught up to the robot.
but they write more in like a drama type of.
They're writing
stuff.
in a universe
Yeah,
that
the fan fiction part of it.
they're writing into literally the Panderverse.
Sure.
That's literally what it is. Their whole direction is to pander, not to make a good story. And I would call that the modern mythos, where it's basically they're taking everything modern wise, like how we relate to things in the modern time. Like, oh, this story is something I need to modify for me to enjoy it.
No, I don't think that's what they mean.
Well, I mean, that
It's
is
more
literally what they're
so.
doing. So,
Well, but we're talking about the video, right?
oh well, yes, but I'm talking about like fantasy as a whole as well.
I mean,
Like,
as a whole, yeah, that's probably
well,
correct.
I'm saying, like, you go out and you talk to somebody who's reading these books or something, and they're like, well, this needs to be this way because gay representation or black representation, Asian representation, or, I like to have sex with pan, so pansexual, whatever. Like, they
That's
throw this stuff in
uncomfortable.
there because they need to relate to it, as opposed to the old way stories were told from all thousands and thousands of years in human history, which was the story's there, they tell you the story, you go, wow, and then you go to bed or whatever.
Well, and maybe also think, oh, I want to be like that.
Maybe that too. Like, oh, I want to be like Jason and the Argonauts. I want to be a hero, or I want to be
Mhm.
somebody who overcomes trials like Odysseus, or I want to do
So
this, or I
the
want to
old
do that.
stuff is more aspirational.
Well, the old
Whereas-
stuff is a story, and you're just hearing what happened. The new stuff is a story, but you're the centerpiece as the reader. Because it's all about you as the reader, because you have to be able to relate to it. So there's something in
Yeah.
there for everyone.
The
As a,
relatability to indeed the reader, that's part of it.
that's
Yeah.
the modernity aspect of it. Because if
Mhm.
we told stories the way stories have been told for tens of thousands, possibly millions of years, whatever age group you want to put the Earth
I
in,
don't fucking know.
it doesn't matter.
Forever?
It's completely basically all of human existence up until like the last 100 years, maybe less than 100 years, 50 years, 75 years, probably 75 years to be safe. People just they heard the story of this great heroic deed, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Wow, that's cool."
Yeah.
Or they heard a story about someone cooking French fries in their bedroom. Wow, doesn't matter because all you were doing was hearing a character doing a thing. It's like a sentence. You have your subject, a verb, you'd have your adjectives, your adverbs, whatever it is you're looking at. You'd put the whole thing together and there'd be a structure to it, and you'd just be like, I enjoyed that. Or I didn't enjoy that, whatever it is might be. Now it's I can't enjoy it unless it's specifically relating to me. I
Mhm.
am the Randall Thor. I am the Egwene Alvear. I am this blah 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 blah. Like, because they can't enjoy just hearing a story.
Well, it's not just the being able to relate to the character. It's not being able to relate to the character except for on like a shallow surface level. Like it's got to be a character who shares um unimportant characteristics with them, like gender or some sort of identity.
Immutable characteristics that
Yes.
nobody else can change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's one thing to like see a character like say Superman and be like, wow, like I want to be like him, like this guy who's like out there like doing the right thing with his powers, even though he technically doesn't have to. And it's one thing to find something in a person that is like deeper than skin level. But a lot of these people will only look at it at the surface level and they'll act like that that's the big thing that has to represent them. And it shows how shallow they are, really. So there isn't it's not specifically that like people want to be like represented, quote unquote, in fiction. Some of my favorite stories are like about characters that I can personally identify with for struggles and things that they went through. But too many people have attached a skin color to their identity, and that's where the problem has sort of come into it.
Well, they've put in a immutable characteristic as something you can't change. Like, I want to be like Superman, but I can't relate to him because I'm black and he's not. It's like,
Oh no.
but can you relate to his humanity, despite him not being human, that he has, where he empathizes with the world, he wants to protect the world, he has fears, he has doubts, he overcomes these things, he has boundaries that even he struggles with, despite being basically the perfect being in this part of the solar system or universe, whatever you want to call it. And it's the traits that we are supposed to adhere to and say, I can relate to that. I have trials and tribulations, just like Odysseus had trials and tribulations, or Jason the Argonaut, or Hercules, or pick a character from any mythos ever. I have those same things. I had to, fight for my family in some situation. I had to protect my kids. I had to feed my kids. I can relate that this person had to do things that they didn't want to do because of their family. I can relate to the things that they did the right thing no matter what because they had principles to stand on, because I can relate to those principles. That's what true storytelling is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if they're Japanese, if they're African, if they're Aztec. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. Those are immutable characteristics that you can't change.
I mean, if the Aztec, it might also involve some human sacrifice, so it may not be the best universal story.
But you could understand, because the Aztecs or the Mayans, when they're doing human sacrifice, they think they're making a change through the gods. And if you're in that scenario, you'd be like, yeah, I would be willing to kill Jeff if it got us better crops and we didn't all starve next year. You can relate to that.
Besides, Jeff is an asshole who never takes a shower. Fuck him.
That too. He's also the local bum, so gotta get rid of him. But like, in terms of, because you're not supposed to relate to things like this in the modern mind. You're supposed to say, if I was in that situation and I had all these horrible things that I had to deal with, I had to worry about a jaguar jumping out and eating my kid.
Yeah, that seems pretty terrible.
Then it means I have to learn how to use a weapon. I have to defend my family. I have to keep my livestock alive. Otherwise, if they get killed by wild animals, I'm screwed. I've got no food for my family. I won't be able to trade the items I've gotten from hunting or something with another local person who has stuff that I need. I won't be able to do the things I need to do because of X, Y, and Z. You can relate to those things in the world at the time. It's foolish, completely and utterly foolish, to try to play the world theme where, in my modern sense, I don't think slavery is right. Well, of course you don't. We live in a world that slavery we believe is wrong. But all prior human history to when slavery was abolished, and it's still not abolished in a lot of places in the world, but before the Brits decided to, like, let's cut this off. We got the abolitionists and everything. Before that time, it was in literally everywhere. It didn't matter who you were. It didn't matter what your immutable characteristics were. Everybody had a slave of some shape or form. Some of them didn't have them very long. Some of them never kept them very long because they either cannibalized them or...
Sorry, when are we talking?
From the abolitionists before.
So that includes like the poor non-slaves.
Well, we're talking every civilization.
Civilization, sure.
Every group, every people group, etc. There's somebody somewhere. If they had the option to have slaves, they had slaves because economically speaking, it's better for them. I can have somebody else do my work for me. It's better than me doing the work. That's economically better.
Well, until you have machines, then it's sort of...
Well, yes, but obviously slavery was technically abolished in the West before machines. But the point being that, like, even today, I had some people were like, oh, they're in some in a Facebook group, and they're talking about, like, well, there's this homophobic person who's giving me slurs and blah 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 blah, and eventually somebody blocked them, and I'm like, you do realize that this person was being quote unquote homophobic towards you and your views, because they were saying something about some guys from Hunter x Hunter having a homoerotic relationship with each other when it's clearly not homoerotic, and people are pointing out that it's not homoerotic, and they point out the one guy who's doing slurs who ends up getting banned, and they're like, oh, the moderator comes in, just let me know if you see that again, and I'll be happy to take care of them.
These, by the way?
Huh?
Which Hunter x Hunter characters are these?
Izuka?
It's the guy who's, I guess, Hunter's dad, or the main Hunter character's dad. He's like a
what?
That seems weird.
Let me see if I can find. Let me see.
That makes no sense.
Well, no, there's like a certified blonde-haired psychopath or white-haired psychopath guy, and the guy comes up. He's like, "I'm gonna have fun." He's like, "I'm gonna have fun with you," and then like, "Oh, it's homoerotic." It's like, no, it's an intellectual wordplay. They're saying, "I'm gonna have fun with you." No, I'm gonna have fun with you, because like both of them understand their power levels and they're trying to like relate. And I'm sitting here going like, nothing about this is homoerotic in the slightest.
It's just like whenever people were saying, like, just imagine, guys, Agatha is naked under that robe.
It says manga's Hunter x Hunter chapter 342.
That definitely sounds like Chimera Ant bullshit, which is
Not it's that blonde hair guy, and
it's a guy with rapping. I think it's Gon's dad. He has a wrapping around his head, and he says, He's like, I'll play with you personally from now on until you beg me to stop. He's like, so you're finally going to pay attention to me.
Paxton and Jing, yeah, they're
like,
basically in a mind game with
we'll
each
see
other.
about that. I'm just doing.
Yeah.
I might be doing this just for my own fun. And they're like, oh, it's homoerotic. I'm like, guys, it's literally two guys who are being snarky
Like-
towards each other with
like,
intellectual wordplay.
I see the
Yeah,
same
they don't
thing
like
with
each other.
ReZero all the time. People
But yeah,
want
what's
to
a
like,
psychopath?
yeah, Paxton is an absolute fucking sociopath, and Jing is
A bum.
Yeah.
nobody really knows what the fuck Jing is.
But that's the thing, is that they're looking into this saying, this is here. And I'm like, no, it's not. I've never read Hunter x Hunter in my life. And I could just see these 3 frames and be like, no, you're reading into this. They're like, you cannot tell me this isn't homoerotic. I'm like, oh, yes, I can. Because that's not how it's written. It's
Like, they
written
could
with
have at least
intellectual-
picked Hisoka, but they wouldn't because Hisoka's a fucking creep.
Yeah.
But it's the thing is that it's not homoerotic to be like basically bragging to your opponent that you're going to have more fun beating them up than they're going to have fun beating up you. It's like, that's not homoerotic. That's chest thumping. That's like, oh, I'm better than you. That's all it is. So it doesn't make
Yeah.
logical sense to be like, that's homoerotic. It's like,
It's
how
'cause
is that
they-
homoerotic?
They don't have any media literacy. Like
Yeah.
they just
I
want to
fucking
put.
hate that term, media literacy.
Say it again, Squash. Say it again.
Yeah, it's just
Media
they
literacy.
want to they just want to claim something just to put their little stamp onto it.
Well, they're
Like losers.
they're the people who look into they read into things what's not there because they want to say it. But if you disagree, they cry homophobia. And it's like, me telling you that that's not what the text means is not homophobia. That's literally me saying you didn't understand what the context is. Because from what I understand from mangakas and just Japanese authors in general, when they want it to be homoerotic, it gets
How do you pronounce
homoerotic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mangaka?
No. Yeah. Mangaka. Mangaka. You can say it however you want. Both
Yeah,
are.
mangaka.
Both
Eat
are.
it, Sage!
Um.
Not a word I
Either
use.
way, like it's the same. There's a lot of anime out there, and it's like why I hate shippers so fucking much because they're annoying
Yeah.
fucking twats.
Well, I mean, to be honest, we were just arguing about we were trying to ship Miku and quintessential quintuplets, but
You know, I don't want to hear it because it's different from saying someone is best girl and saying, hey, this totally not gay knight who just so happens to use 5 elements. In
only
his
gay
magic
people use
system,
5 elements. You should know this.
yeah, is totally fucking gay because he sparkles and he looks pretty.
I mean, that's literally Twilight, but yeah.
So is this also ReZero?
Yeah, that is definitely ReZero. No, it's
Okay.
one of the things where like
I had Reinhardt in my head as that character. Is
no,
that
I'm
correct?
talking about Julius. I'm talking about Julius.
Okay.
The number of like ship posts I've seen with Subaru and fucking Julius, I want to fucking shoot someone in Minecraft.
Luckily for you, you can.
I know I'm playing Minecraft right now. I'm gonna
I
go
know.
fuck
you
some
can
shit up.
Literally go get a bow and just boing.
Well, in this, I have all sorts of weapons. I'm probably gonna build a Dragon Slayer.
I don't even know what
That's
that is.
nice.
It's been a while
Yeah.
since I played Minecraft.
Dragon Slayer.
Berserk sword. I'm gonna build a Berserk sword.
Ah.
that
Berserk
a new
without all
thing?
this Berserk without all the supernatural stuff would be a great story.
Hmm?
I just want to hear about a story about a mercenary group going around doing mercenary group stuff. That's all I want.
If
That's all
it was just the Band of the Hawk, yeah, that would actually be a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
I'd
That's what I
it
want.
would, yeah.
That's literally all I want. And then they had to go ruin it.
Too bad. Too bad. Ruin it. Oh no,
Ruin
you
it.
better calm down.
No, they ruined that sucker.
No.
The whole
disagree.
demons sacrificing people. I don't care about that crap. That's nonsense.
That's what are you? Oh my goodness. You know what?
It's not a compelling. It's about as compelling as Fully Cooley.
Oh,
Have you seen Fully Cooley?
no, but
Okay,
I've known
you
people
don't
like
understand the pain.
I watched
Fully-
one of the bad, like newer renditions of Fooly
I saw the
Cooley.
original Fully Cooley, and I
I
wanted
have not
to
watched
shoot
the
myself.
original yet, but everyone I talk to
It's-
seems to love it.
Nonsense. after nonsense, and nothing makes sense. I don't know what the point is. I don't know what the plot is. I don't know what anything is. It's just there. And I'm like, this is like Evangelion. It just doesn't make sense.
Accent. I know it isn't much, but be sure to swing by.
That's awkward, but okay.
Wow.
But yeah, like there's
Whose AI sex bot is talking back at them?
obviously Squash. Remember, he has that guy's big dick in his face.
Oh yeah.
Ah, fuck. Oh,
Yeah.
I guess the character got rid of that.
And for those watching, the best part is none of them can see each other. So that's or me. I can see all of them. They can't see me for some reason, but that's a software issue. We'll have to figure it out. But point being, there's some the fantasy aspect. If you apply it to like anime and stuff, you can do some pretty crazy stuff, and nobody really thinks twice about it for that matter. For as long as it's structured to some level, there's a level of structure to it, and the logic is kind of there. Like what's the Duran something with the headless bike lady?
Duran. I almost said Duran.
I almost that's what I was thinking in my head too. I was like, that's not what I'm doing.
Durarara or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Durarara. Like it's
Oh.
got some crazy wild stuff, but they at least have some semblance of a structure to it. So you're like, okay, it's enjoyable, I suppose. I mean, the overall thing I thought was kind of silly and didn't like draw me in, but there were some interesting characters. They did some crazy things, and you're like, oh, like a 14-year-old's leading a gang in like the middle of Tokyo. Like that's kind of weird, but okay. Like,
Hey, that's Tokyo Revengers. Don't get me started on that one.
rip off. But like there you can do some crazy stuff. But typically when you have a story system in place, you have story modes. You have I'm telling a story about a hero going around and accomplishing things. Here's the world building. There's cities, there's plains, there's lava pits, but then you have villains, you have orcs, goblins, you've got liches, you've got gods, you've got whatever. And then, oh, there's a magic system. There's not a magic system. There can be spaceships. There's not spaceships. Like whatever the case might be, but there's always a system of some semblance together. The better stories have more things explained for the person to read, not necessarily to the full extent to every little detail, but at least enough for you to be still little mysterious aspects to it, but enough for you to be able to like, okay, I have a general grasp of how magic's supposed to work. So when I see something happen, I'll be like, no, that can't happen because of this rule here. Or, well, that happened. I don't know fully how it happened, but I know it's possible for that to happen. I just haven't figured it out quite yet. Or it gets explained later on, like, oh, it was because of this thing that you had in your pocket was amplifying your power, kind of thing, like Rand having the little fat man with a sword in his waistband or whatever when he took on Asmodean and jacked him up because of that. Like those little details are what make great world building, great storytelling, and let us know so much more than what we would directly expect. So they don't write them like they used to. I mean, the exceptions possibly being like Brandon Sanderson. I have not read Stormlight Archives. I know nothing about it except that people say it's good. That's the limit of my knowledge of it. Whenever I have time in like 15 years, I will probably read them. But
in 15 years, when you don't have to manage a bunch of kids and a job and all that shit, right?
And a whole bunch of hobby jobs and things I enjoy doing that I don't have time for as it is now. Yeah. Squash is upside down. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Sounds about right.
But yeah, it's I don't know. The fantasy thing is a bit of a weird one for me because I've got high standards because of Wheel of Time and because of Tolkien. It's kind of hard to say anything else is as good when nothing is as good that I can see.
I kind of get what you're saying with some of this, like with just like fantasy not being as good as it was, but I think that's just a general trend of more and more people pumping stuff out.
Brandon Sanderson can pump out like 4 to 7 books a year,
but not everyone is a good author. That's my point. That's my
point. It's like he is a good author by all accounts. Like I have the Mistborn series. I think it's great, but it's a different type of writing compared to what I'm used to. Like I'm used to the Lord of the Rings, Tolkien Legendarium, which is pretty complete, all things considered. Like you can't really get lost. It's pretty complete because it's the history of the world up to a certain point, and then a lot more details in that certain point, all the way up to basically the ending. And then you have the Wheel of Time, which is a complete series, and for the most part follows the notes of the author after he passed away pretty solidly. So all things considered, it's really, really good. And you're like, okay, I have a million strings to tie. I've got millions of named characters that I could remember, whatever the case might be. Nobody else has really done that. They might have some good books here or there. Like the Dune books may be good, maybe not be good. I heard mixed things on them. There's Terry Pratchett's work. There's Terry Brooks, which everyone seems to not like if you're into the really good stuff. They're all over the place. So it's just kind of like, it doesn't feel the same. Even like, it's kind of like Steven Spielberg, not Spielberg, whatever the frick. Steven Spielberg, when he did his early stuff like Jurassic Park and all that jazz, he's like really, really good director, doing really, really cool stuff in like the indie world kind of a thing. But now in the modern times, he doesn't seem to make a single good film. It feels like he's lost his touch kind of a thing. And I feel that's the way that even like authors that have been around for a long time are still going that same route. So it's rare for me to see something good, but the old stuff's so good for a whole lot of reasons that the modern world doesn't want to
acknowledge
or think is good writing. And when you say what is happening to fantasy, what's happening is they stopped doing it like they used to. They stopped writing world building with like good world building skills and tips and all these different aspects to it. They stopped caring about the stories and cared more about almost like activism or how people perceive their characters rather than writing a story that people can either enjoy or not enjoy. They wrote a story because they want people to enjoy it, but it's not enjoyable by really anyone except for the most simple minds. And even the simple minds are more tourists because they'll show up, they'll read it, and then they'll walk away because they don't care.
They're out there for the long haul, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's fandom. Like when you look anime, for example, I mean, My Hero Academia has a pretty large fan base. Naruto has a pretty large fan base. Bleach has a pretty large fan base. One Piece has a pretty large fan base, and they're pretty hardcore. And if you don't like One Piece, it's because you're probably a tourist. Because storytelling wise, it's a great story. It might not be your art style. I hear the art style complaint more than anything else. I also hear it's too long. I'm like, why do you want your story to end? Because that means you have less of it, which means you have to go to a different story or something. Now,
no,
if
my complaint about it is mostly just the anime on the production side doesn't do payoff as good as some other anime. It feels like it drags its feet. That's literally my only complaint about One Piece and why I stopped watching it about halfway through.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that because ironically, One Piece has the least amount of filler episodes of like any anime.
Yes, but let's talk about Dressrosa, where when I was watching it, I would literally get half an episode of recap and then like 5 minutes
Dragon
of
Ball Z, dude.
Yeah, and I don't really care much for Dragon Ball Z either.
Shame him.
I said it. I think Dragon Ball as a series was like a 5 or a 6, but its cultural impact cannot be overlooked
or denied.
Yes.
Bow down.
I mean, Dragon Ball isn't that deep.
Yeah.
It requires a little bit more thought process to get to the deep aspects, but I mean, there is deep aspects to it. It's just Goku's a very simple person, so he's easy to follow.
Mm-hmm.
But all the things that he goes through or is surrounding him in the story can be deeper. I'm not saying it is deeper, but I mean, you could psychoanalyze everything that happens in Dragon Ball and come up with a lot more than probably the average just viewer casually interested in it would come up with.
Yeah,
but
the symbolism, it's just really fun story. It's simple storytelling of a guy, fighting the bad guy to save his world.
Well, he wants to protect those who he cares about. That's the basic gist of it. So when I'm going out and watching One Piece and they have a Dressrosa arc and it's a whole bunch of stuff, yeah, I'd love it if they covered more ground in less episodes, sure. But you also have to keep in mind they have to wait for the mangas to keep up, but they're also pumping out stuff, so they're going to be doing that. but they're also doing it from like what 20, 30 different characters' perspectives. So you have to kind of like show what's going on one side of the city and say at the same time over on this side of the city, this is what happens, and then over on this side, this is what happens with this other character, and then go from place to place to place to place. It becomes a problem when you have a lot of really interesting big characters to follow, as opposed to just menial characters. But it's
my
doable.
complaint has never been that One Piece has been a terrible anime. That it's been a terrible story, I should say. My issue is entirely with its production aspects, to where I find it kind of hard to watch myself. And I'm not one of those people who needs like a 2-minute synopsis of an episode in order to like enjoy an anime.
I always skip synopsises because I'll pick it up immediately. Like
no, I mean, like, I'm not one of those people who wants to sit there like, all right, feed me everything lightning fast. No, I like slow, methodical storytelling that takes its time and does a lot of like detail and stuff. So
is that
One
what they call it
Piece.
these days?
You want to fuck off?
Not with you. But no.
No, but like, so like One Piece as a story, as a manga, I actually think it's one of the best ever written. The anime, though, I just couldn't stomach for various production reasons. Like, it felt like things would just drag on for an eternity.
If
and
you
that
had
was
the option of seeing One Piece without all the 2-minute synopsises after every single freaking episode,
well, that's
seeing
not
the
what
same
I'm talking
repetitive
about.
stuff.
Yeah, I would probably if they.
I'm saying like if a fan person came around, like fan project came along and took all that, condensed it, so you only saw it like one time from the
like Wit Studio is doing. Yes, I will watch that.
with what studio?
Wit Studio is doing a One Piece remake, and their whole goal is to shorten the runtime of One Piece.
Sure, I'd like watching that, but I'm the person who's like, I want every anime episode to be an hour long.
Well, yeah, if it's an hour long of like,
I'm not saying the
like
whole season in one go. I'm saying I want each season to be broken up into like 24 hours.
Yeah, no, that I'm agreeing with you here. Is if we're talking about like how much anime I would actually want, like I wouldn't mind whether it's a 1 hour episodes, 24 hours a piece. I don't care about the time frame. I'm caring about
I hate 3-minute episodes.
Well, yeah, so do I. I don't want it too short, but the time frame isn't so much a deal
long.
it is how well they use that time. And my issue with One Piece was I would get to certain episodes where they're good, but I'm sitting there for 5 minutes watching Luffy scream at Rob Lucci throwing punches over and over and over again. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. Cut it down a little bit. I don't
Dragon
need
Ball
5
Z,
minutes of
7
that. And
episodes of power-ups.
it is entirely the production side, because the mangas were running like at the same pace as them. The production teams for the anime had to drag stuff out, and they did stuff like that. You cut that stuff out, you condense One Piece down better, I would watch the hell out of that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, but sometimes I even get to the point where like I've been watching Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, and like they get to the basis of the outro, and I just automatically hit next episode. I don't even like skip the outro and go to what's afterwards, because I assume naturally that it's just the trailer for the next episode, which I don't want to see. And half the time nowadays in the modern anime era, it's actually more content. I'm like, then why did you put this before the outro? What's wrong with you? But yeah, I don't know if they're trying to just suck up as much runtime as possible, but I'm like, if it's not important enough to put before the outro, it's not important enough for me to see. I'm just gonna go to the next one and I'll pick up what they were supposed to be talking about.
I think it's because of the Marvel movie end credit scenes.
Maybe, but I don't know how much that affects Japan though.
I don't know.
I feel like Japan's pretty untouched by that kind of nonsense.
Could be.
Because it's not even every studio. Some studios, it's just the outro, and then it's the credits for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's it. That's most of them. On rare occasion, though, I'm seeing more and more frequently now with the newer animes. They're like, oh, by the way, there's a little bit more after this. And you're just like, but swap that with your outro, and you're golden. Or better yet, don't have an outro, don't have an intro, just tell me the story in one long consecutive thing that just jumps straight to the next one, and I don't have to wait. Like, Why not? It just it doesn't make sense. But I want a lot of things from anime, and I don't see them ever actually happening because I want them to make sense, and a lot of them don't make sense. But I like when I watched The Fruit of Evolution, I liked the first season. The second season was good, but it wasn't as good as the first season because the first season, him like meeting more companions, getting more power ups and stuff. The second season was barely even about him. It's just kind of like, it's kind of weird. It's fun.
Mhm.
It's a comedy, and I think it does comedy great. It's a great comedy series because it'd be like he'll be in the middle of doing something. Oh my wall, no. Oh, kids of these age wouldn't understand this because it's Fist of the Northern Star, and it's just like that's fantastic. Like they even changed the drawing on his face to match Fist of the Northern Star. Like it's great. It's hilarious, and I think as a comedy parody isekai, it's fantastic. It's definitely the best comedy of the isekais I've seen. But I don't think there's very many comedy isekais to begin with. But it was great. It had a little bit of everything in it, and I was happy with it. But I didn't necessarily care about how the second part ended. So I also don't see anime as like really good in the fantasy era. Like they don't draw compelling worlds all that often. Unless you guys know of something that I don't.
I mean, it depends on what you're describing as a compelling world, because I mean,
Yeah.
there are certain like fantasy anime that I really like. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge fan of Berserk. I'm pretty sure you guys figured that out. I like Claymore as well. I like Frieren.
Claymore's great,
Yeah.
and I'm so sad they never continued it because that had so much potential.
I have the entire box set of the manga up there on my
I want it,
shelf.
but I only have the I think
There
Blu-ray
is
of it.
a statue like that was made limited, like a limited edition thing of like the final battle for the series. It's $1,000 fucking, but I am very tempted to buy
There
it.
was a box set at a Barnes and Noble one time. It was like $200. I'm like, no, it was like 140. I'm like, I can't buy that. I cannot.
140. That's a steal for a fucking Claymore box set.
Well, then it might have been more.
Yeah, it's
but
probably like 1400.
I was already buying other stuff.
No,
I
I
was
mean,
already buying
what
other
I was
stuff.
saying is like it was, when I got mine, it was like $220. So not like a
So,
steal,
might
but it
have
was a
been
good
that.
discount for me.
a 1/8 PVC scale figure of Claire from Claymore is $181.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Hmm.
But I
if
don't
you're-
want Claire.
If you're
I want
wanting
Teresa.
the Teresa versus
Yes.
Priscilla Elite exclusive statue, that's $2,000.
Yes. That's the one I want.
There's a 1300. I mean, it's a pretty cool one. There's a bust figure for 54 for I think that's Teresa.
Anyway, I should probably go. It's getting late over here.
Acting like you actually have freaking like time zones or something of different time things
Yeah,
and stuff.
those
like
exist.
like the sun's about to come up or something.
It is probably soon.
Well, we can go ahead and just close everything out because I think we got pretty much everything of the 3 topics intended to cover. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. But good laughs, good arguments. Sage being wrong as usual, but
No.
No, I don't necessarily know if it's him being wrong or you just talk a lot.
He does.
I
talk a
mean,
lot.
I'm literally the perfect YouTuber
Then why don't you have more subs than me?
because
Wait,
I
oh,
talk
really?
too much. I am the perfect YouTuber. Also, most people don't like me, like off of inherent principle. So I'm weaponized autism incarnate. People don't like that. So I would like to go into a world where I could talk about things I care about more than things that I think are terrible. Unfortunately, there's not enough of that going around for me to make a whole lot of content off of. But I would like to at some point make a way for me to do like live streams of like Lord of the Rings or something, where I could have the audience watch with me and we can just talk about it and say all the silly quotes of that's where he broke a toe and he kicked that helmet or something like that, or whatever.
I think
That-
we all know which
that'd be
scene we're
fun.
talking about right now.
I don't know. Squash looks a little confused at the moment.
No, I watched it.
I can't see anything. So
I can see it. But yes, also to answer your question, Crimson, I think it's also because people don't know who I am.
Are you like Diddy or something?
what?
What? Everybody knows who Diddy is.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Never mind.
I don't know. Marketing is half the battle in this crap, and I don't have a very good marketing because there's not really marketing for small channels. That's the problem.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I mean, I have the same type of content as people who have like 15,000, and okay. If people don't find me, it's because the algorithm screwed me over or whatever. It's just like I can make a bunch of different types of videos. Some of them get hits. I think the largest I've ever gotten was like anywhere between 500 to 700 views on one video, and it's just like that's not turning into subs. But at the same time, you don't want them to turn into subs if they're not going to watch your stuff per se. I don't know. But people don't leave comments half the time to tell me like they want to see more of this, they want to see more of that, or they don't want to see any of this and they want to see something else. Like if somebody's like, "Hey, would you make a video off of, how many dragons it takes to blow out a candle?" Sure, I'll write a freaking I'll do a video on that. I don't care. Like, will you watch it? Like, I wanted to go through every single item up here and then just basically go say, "Here's a cool item thing I have," and just be like spurging over all the cool stuff I have and all the stuff I'd like to get. There's lots. I have freaking Asperger's, dude. I have a problem when it comes to collecting things. So I get really excited about that type of stuff. And I hear all the time that people like to hear people passionate about stuff. They just don't show up. I don't know how to fight that. So I don't got like I've lost money doing the YouTube channel. Like so much money. Because
yeah, that's pretty much all I've done is lost money on this thing.
Well, like I don't even do like super chats or anything. I can't afford to do that. I got a family to take care of. I've got a mortgage. I got a whole bunch of stuff. I don't got money to throw at that, but I got money for this stuff because this stuff will stay with me. Super chats literally disappear, and we had a financier backer person for the channel, but he's going through some stuff, so he doesn't have the money to throw out. Otherwise, he'd throw out super chats or whatever to promote the stuff. But at the same time, place you go to super chat, they don't necessarily want you to super chat that kind of stuff because they don't want to talk about your channel. They want to talk about their channel. It's like, okay, but I'm giving you money to just talk about my stuff for like 10 seconds, like whatever. And then even if you do tell those people, there's no guarantee that somebody's going to go check out your channel or anything. And even if they do check out your channel the first time, are they going to stick around the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth? Are they going to stick around consistently? Are they going to tell you, "Hey, I'd like to see this kind of content"? No, because they just assume that you are going to make the content they want. Well, how am I supposed to know what content you want if you don't tell me? Because I don't have a problem. Like I'd love to do. I had an idea for going through my game libraries on like Steam, GOG, or PS5, Xbox, Switch, whatever, and just picking out a game, playing it through the tutorial, playing a bit of the bit of it, and saying, "Here's what the gameplay is like. Here's what I think about the game. Do I think it's running smoothly?" I'm very pedantic, so obviously, like, I mean, Sage and you, Crimson, know what I mean, how I feel about Monster Hunter. But it's like that kind of stuff. Yeah, I could complain about a lot of different things, but I can also praise a lot of things. I like a lot of aspects of Monster Hunter. I just think they could have improved a lot of stuff and polished it a lot more before they released it to make it the best game they possibly could. Which,
welcome to the entire Monster Hunter fandom, by the way.
I'd be more of a tourist in that regard, mostly because I just started into it and I don't know how much I'm like sold into it. But my thing about games in general is I want to be able to do stuff. I don't want limitations that are built in to become a problem so they can sell me a solution. I don't want that. I want the game just to be built. Now, if it's like a platform jumper game like Super Mario 3 or something, I'm not going to expect to have real life scenario type stuff because the limitation is built into the game because that's how the game operates. And I'm expecting that because it's just a platform jumper. But if I'm expecting it to be Stellar Blade, I'm expecting fluidity. I'm expecting, because it's a modern futuristic game, it made a lot of money. They can make the adjustments or whatever, if there's anything that need that. But I'm also a big proponent of them just making the game, dropping it as one, and possibly selling it in a physical box so I can throw it on my shelf and I can buy it from you. Because I want to permanently own it. I don't want to buy a license to use it. Like, what does that even mean? But whatever. But yeah, like if I'm playing a boxing game, I expect my punches to punch the way they're supposed to punch. If I'm playing a fighter game, I'm expecting my combos to do what the combos are supposed to do. That can't be too much to ask for. It's like, if you're selling me a concept, make the concept as well as you possibly can. And if that's as possibly as you can, you need to hire better developers, because some of those games are pretty bad. Other games are perfectly fine. Like, I love Super Smash Bros. It's super simple comparative to like Street Fighter, Tekken, Dead or Alive, Soul Calibur, etc. like that. But it's way more fluid because they focused on the core essentials before they went into the crazy combinations. I'm not particularly fond of crazy combinations because I think it takes too long to do them and it's way too easy to screw them up. So I'm probably never going to use them, but I could still beat the whole freaking story mission or something and unlock all the characters, unlock all their outfits and all that type of stuff and have like 100% on that game just using basic punches and kicks or basic combinations. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it'd be nice if they focused on a different type of mechanic system. But there's a lot of games I haven't played yet that I'd love to play that look really fun. A lot of them are computer only because, like, Age of Empires types games where you can't do RTSs very well on consoles if they have any. I know Xbox had Halo Wars and that was okay, I suppose, but it's really hard to use.
Not really.
Well, I mean, it's really hard to use a controller like a mouse. It doesn't move as fast. It doesn't react. If it reacts as fast as a mouse,
Yep,
it's going to over jump everything. Now, the thing about Xbox is you can technically plug in a mouse.
Oh, we didn't know that.
They have USB. You just plug it in. And just...
Hmm.
But it's also made by a PC company, so that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah.
But like, that's one of the things I like about the Steam Deck is I can plug in a keyboard and a mouse into my Steam Deck, put it on my TV, and play with a keyboard and mouse off of my Steam Deck. Let's do it. Now I just want the freaking Switch 2 or Super Switch, as it should be called. I agree with Neek on that one. It makes sense. Super Nintendo, Super Switch.
Yeah, I guess.
It sounds good. The only thing they need, name aside, the thing they have to do is give it a massive performance boost. They have to. If they don't, and it's just literally just the Switch, but a next generation that's not really that much of a generation change, they're going to lag behind. But they also need to have standards for optimization because freaking Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was just atrocious.
Yeah, yikes.
Anyway.
You actually played that game. Wow.
Well, I did because I skipped Sword and Shield because I thought it was trash and I didn't want to play it. And this one was like, oh, it's an open world big one like Arceus.
Well,
I like Arceus.
I think Sword and Shield is probably better than Scarlet and Violet.
Graphically, yes. The style-wise, no. I don't like the side view thing and the weird shifting. I'd rather have a top-down like a normal Pokemon game if I'm doing that.
Fair.
Like, I have Brilliant Diamond because I have Diamond. Or I had Diamond and Pearl. I eventually just upgraded to Platinum. But needless to say, I like Pokemon. I'm not been happy with the recent Pokemons, excluding Arceus. Arceus is actually pretty fun. But they could have optimized a lot of those things a lot better to where they're 1080p at least and run at 60 frames per second. It's not too much to ask. They have the money easily. They just are too lazy to do it. And that's why I think things like Koromon, Pal World, and other games like that, like Temtem, threatening Pokemon will boost its innovation and give us better Pokemon. Is the idea anyway. Will it actually do that? Well, not if Nintendo can just shoot everything down because they have to protect their precious IP that they're not going to do anything innovative with. We're never going to get anything good. But anyways, I could go on for those 17 hours probably. Yeah. We'll go ahead and end it here. So Sage, you don't have a YouTube channel, so you don't matter. So yeah. Squash, you don't have anything either as far as I'm aware.
Nope.
And Crimson Law, where can they find you at in future projects after this coming Sunday?
Well, I'm not really going to be doing anything other than my Saturday live stream this week. So,
and he didn't even invite Squash. Embarrassing.
Damn. And also, that's before Sunday.
I know.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. You can
They
find
can watch
me
it
at
afterwards.
you can find me at Crimson Law. That's my main channel where I do video essays. I'm going back to some of my original segments, like the initial impression stuff, talking about seasonal anime and all that, as well as keeping track of like where all these shows are ranking over the week in my own personal little tier list I've been working on. I do that live, and then I just post some of the recap on my main channel. The live channel, Crimson Live, I do a weekend show talking about like anime news, weekly anime, all that kind of stuff. And I also do game streams over there, like Monster Hunter and shit. Or you could just watch me scream into the void over on Twitter at Crimson Lawson.
Lawson?
It's a joke. Someone misread my name for some reason.
No. The only joke here is you.
Yes.
Aw.
But yeah, what are you gonna make your hangout channel? Where you just hang
When I
out,
finally
shoot the
decide
breeze
to
with
buy
your
the
friends?
rope and tie it to the fan.
I mean, you have that stuff, don't you? As long as you spin in circles, that's all that matters. But yeah, I mean, I like hangout chat things because I can just like shoot the breeze and be like, hey, like what we're doing technically right this second, and just shoot the breeze about something and pick a topic and go. But those are usually on the slower days when there's not a whole lot going on, but there's way too much stuff going on in the culture.
I am
sphere,
trying this
so.
next week. That is one other thing for the live channel is doing a live stream specifically dedicated to talking about Chainsaw Man. The issue is one of the guys who I'm trying to get in on it just does not communicate whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That seems awkward. Yeah.
So
See, if
that,
are you doing like the whole stream is just Chainsaw Man, or are you talking like it's Chainsaw Man plus other things?
no, it is literally just dedicated to like straight Chainsaw Man talk. That's the entire stream.
See, that's not a hangout channel. A hangout channel is literally like we'll talk about topics, but we'll also talk about other stuff, like what we did today, kind of thing.
Okay. Well, I'm probably not going to do that kind of thing.
You need to do that thing so people can come talk and hang out with you, and then talk about manga and anime stuff and video games. And
Man, I do enough of that than the fucking Discord.
Yeah,
and
but
everyone I talk to, and
video essays are lame compared to that kind of stuff. That stuff's the interactive stuff. That's what people thirst for.
that's what I do on my live stream.
Is it though?
Yes.
Is it though?
Yes.
Well, I've never heard of him.
I'm gonna fucking stick my hand up your ass.
That sounds uncomfortable
Yeah, that's kind of gay.
and a little smelly and gay. Definitely gay.
I'm gonna operate you like a puppet, just like someone else does.
That's nothing compared to a Walter Fire. So, sorry, Achman jokes. But yeah, we'll go ahead and kind of call it there. So yeah, Crimson Law, you can follow him, and if you happen to find it, is your other channels linked to your face of your channel?
Yeah, if you go to my main channel, you should be able to find my Twitter and my.
Well, I meant like the channels at the bottom where they like you linked all your channels to that. So if they have like one of your side channels, they can get to it through your main channel.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, yeah. So there you go.
It's up there in the description and all that stuff. You can find it there.
The big red little shield thingy badge.
Yes.
Jigger, whatever that is. Yeah. And as for me, I do this once a week, and maybe I'll sneak out a couple other things, but on occasion it depends on what is available in the culture sphere. And usually when I get something really fancy, like I ordered the Tomb Raider Deluxe for I think Switch, it might be PS5, I don't remember, where it has like an art book, it's got the soundtrack and all that kind of stuff. So when I get that kind of stuff in the mail, I typically show it off. I'll do something like I did the if you can see it right here, I did the
No, I can't.
the Old Republic, or Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2. And then also I did it for, which you can't really see because it's behind the Hobbit stuff, but right here is the Force Unleashed master editions of all three of those. So I showed off. I have videos of showing off all the little cool little bits and pieces and bobs of those things. So one of these days I'll just be like, check out this really cool thing I got for Christmas for my brother, aka a 3D map of the Hobbit and Eriador and the Rovanian territories that has actual things that you can put on the map that are actually pop off the map. And yeah, have yet to put it together. Maybe I'll do a stream for that or something like that. Nobody shows up to the live stream, so I kind of end up talking to myself. So that's how that works.
Welcome to the club.
I know. Well, if I knew you had stuff on Saturday, I might actually come hang out, depending on how late you go.
I usually start at 8 and go till like 10 Central.
Okay, I can usually go until about 9:20 on that one because I have raids. So I might play in the background, but I won't be able to interact with you because I'll be controlling a character killing things. So, but yeah, maybe, I mean, heck, maybe one of these days we could just do Sunday streams of just video games or something.
Yeah.
If I could ever figure out how to do that on OBS, because I've not really done on OBS. I did everything through StreamYards, and that was causing so many problems. So,
well, I stream through Streamlabs for games, and you can do that entirely free.
Oh, well, I just use OBS. I don't know how Streamlabs works. I'm an old man. I don't understand this stuff.
It's pretty easy, actually.
Well, then I
illiterate.
guess you're volunteering to tell me how to do it. So
I don't know how to operate it. All I know is I click the button now and it goes live.
I click the big shiny thing and things happen for me. That's how I do it. Well, yeah, I mean, OBS is technically the best way to do it because it'll take your computer specs rather than the server specs, which prevents a lot of things from happening the wrong way. So, but maybe we'll do that. Who knows? It'll be fun. But yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and call it there. So thanks everybody for hanging out, and we'll do our usual outro. So I guess look forward to the next week's release of whatever it is we end up talking about. We're kind of trying to take a break from Tolkien stuff. So before we jump into the last of the the Tolkien Society stuff that we have?
Tolkien Society.
We got what, 4 or 5? Maybe
I
4
think too many.
And yet not enough. And then we also have some other stuff that Gadfly had found for us. So yeah, we'll cover that stuff too.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
You're going to be there. Deal with it. But yeah, we'll end up going with that. I don't know what happened to Squash, but he has disappeared. But that is part of the course since we're all about to disappear. So yeah. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We'll keep an eye out for whatever else comes, and maybe I'll do some short news videos if I can. It's kind of hard to keep anything to 5 minutes because there's just too much to talk about whatever topic it is. So we'll see how that works. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Remember, my friends, walk in the light.
Farewell.